ancient prophecies telling us that the world will be transformed.
Wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can he steal? It's the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can he steal? He makes all this stuff up and claims that it's all true. The aliens want to eat us. Be careful that they don't get you. It's the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can you steal? It's the wacky world of Wilcock, where make-believe is real. It's the wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can you steal?
This is where if I have a live audience, I get everybody to hug each other. I say, give your neighbor a handshake or a hug, whatever you feel is appropriate to you. And that way everybody feels the love a little more. I will never believe it, I will never believe it. Okay, that's fine. Maybe you need 25,000 more years, I don't know, buddy. But look, this is really compelling information, and it's going to get a lot more intense. It's coming up in a couple days here on Sunday, so if you haven't already signed up, we have reopened the cart. We still have the payment plan in place. That account, I believe, is real. I've watched it for a long time, and he says a lot of really provocative stuff there that has definitely caught my attention on many, many occasions. I've heard this briefing many times. Incredibly, incredibly sad, but probably a lot more than just what it looks like on the surface. If you don't really see what's going on here, this might not make sense. Very evil people are running the planet and want to kill you, okay? And they're trying to do that, and they're aggressively pursuing this goal right now. And now the Earth is much like a tree in which the tree is ripening, and the fruit has come to its fruition. Fruit, you see what I did there? Anyway, the things that I was forced to witness, the Draco's eating human beings, and Draco's eating my own body. Okay, one of the things I discovered, which is very weird, is that some of the technology they got in UFO disclosure, they could literally chop your head off and then zip you right back together and bring you back to life like nothing even happened. So there are some sickos who had children get eaten alive and then resuscitate their body from the dead, and that's what apparently was done to me, among other things. That's it. I just want to kill people and drink blood and and rape and molest. That's my goal in life, and that's one of the main things I've had to deal with over the last few months. You think I want to be up here on this fucking camera talking about this shit? I'm sorry. I didn't know it was going to get like this. I didn't know it was going to get this bad. And I'm the positive guy. I mean, I always try to make it positive. But this is just crazy. The quadrigays, yes. But nothing gay is going to happen. It's only a title. Anyway, wow, I got to stop. You have to use the orgasmic energy, apparently. There's something about the orgasmic energy. Rub-a-dub-dub, 4 minutes. I'm not even going to go there, okay? There is a monster under the bed. You can look at it if you want to, but it's really going to gross you out, and you're probably going to want to puke. Honest to God. Thank you for being here. It's been total chaos ever since. Go back to the slide now. Okay, well, what would an airplane think? I don't know. What kind of airplane do you think we should ask? I might have an airplane that looks a little familiar to you. If this airplane could only talk after all the time that's gone by, if this airplane could talk, what would it say? What would this particular airplane have to say if there was a previous tenant that was in this airplane before? And maybe the other guy was in this airplane sometimes before. Let's just ask, let's just...
Your crap. Your failure.
So, okay. Yeah, I get it.
Shut up. I'm in charge.
I gotta know. Did strange things happen in there?
I'll eat your ass.
Really?
I will eat your ass.
Really?
I will eat your ass like corn on the cob.
No way. Right in there. In there. The crazy stuff. If airplanes could talk. I will crawl naked over broken glass. It would have been fine if it wasn't for you meddling kids. She actually said that. I was there. Scooby thinks that it's a monster, oh, give me Scooby snacks. They're psychopaths. Do you get it yet? You cannot be gay. You don't get to complain. You don't even get to have a voice if you complain. We're going to take that away from you. Wow, I can get both of them going. Look at that. I can do it both at the same time in different ways. Isn't that amazing? How does he do that? How is it even possible? And why is he so awesome? And now I'm jealous, desperate, and needy all the time. Well, yeah. Well, we're not going to talk about all that stuff. My wife wants to go for the jugular. I'm not ready for that yet. I know what you're talking about. And by the way, you can be going on all different camera angles as I do this. Just keep taking it from different shots. And let it go. But wait a minute. Oh, there's so many things I could say, folks. And I said I'm not going to do any fundraising, so I won't. I got to not do it. I'm David Wilcock. Thanks for watching.
My goal actually is to only talk for 1 hour today. And it's very clear that there's something going on. When I get into a slide mode, I get very amped up. I just rode the train all the way out here through the most horrific, 2 days of not sleeping from New York to Colorado. Oh my God. We're off to a lame start here. You've apparently decided that I'm still a worthwhile human being in your eyes and not someone just to be scorned and hated. See what we can do with a nice satanic halo. Wouldn't that be interesting? Words you probably don't want to say. Yeah. Do you realize how hard I'm working for you? This takes effort. This causes me to sweat. And so if you can't appreciate that, it really hurts my feelings. And I think we need to talk about it because they don't want you to know that you are a creator being, that you have godlike powers.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. And happy Easter, by the way. Today is Easter and a traditional time of renewal. And we are here because David Wilcock is back on track and ready to attack your wallet. This man who has made millions of dollars selling people false information from his false, fake, so-called government insiders and whistleblowers, which we can demonstrably prove are fake. David Wilcock is back, and I have previewed his, I think it's a 2-hour plus long stream in which he swore he was only going to do 90 minutes, but his ego wouldn't let him only do 90 minutes. David Wilcock is a slave to his own ego. And he thinks that what he has to say is so important that people will sit there for hours and hours on end to hear him make essentially false claims. Now, the gist of David Wilcock's new money grab is that he has been in communication with the Archangel Michael, who told him, among other things, to take baths in his own urine in order to get superpowers. And apparently David Wilcock followed that advice and got superpowers. But in this latest video, we did not get any more details of David Wilcock's new superpowers, which came from his own piss. That's right. He thinks that he got superpowers from taking baths in his own piss because the Archangel Michael, of course, told him that if he wanted superpowers, he had to take baths in his own piss. And he did it, right? Because who is he to question the Archangel Michael? Now, before we get into the specifics and I share the video and we offer some commentary on that video, it's important to note that we have talked about this time and time again. David Wilcock is a 100% provable false prophet. And there is substantial and supportive evidence for that. There are safeguards in place so that people can spot and identify a false prophet. Now, the biblical test, it's called the test of a prophet for a reason. And in that biblical test, essentially, if a prophet or claimed prophet is wrong one time, then they fail the test of a prophet. We can prove that David Wilcock, in his fake prophetic predictions for future events, has been wrong hundreds of times. In fact, he had a website called ascension2000.com. That website he attempted to scrub from the internet because I'm assuming because he knows that if people read some of his old predictions and see that he is wrong 95% of the time, they won't believe his future or current predictions for the future. He is essentially claiming that he has been in contact with the Archangel Michael, and that all of these prophetic predictions for current times came from the Archangel Michael in the 1990s. But there's a huge problem with that, and that is that David Wilcock is attempting to use the same trick that many fake psychics use, which is to essentially just claim that they wrote the predictions at a previous time. But there's no evidence of that. And in fact, on David Wilcock's own old website, I was only able to find one reference to the Archangel Michael. And that was predictions from the year 1999, November 2nd, 1999. Now, if we look at the actual text of this, it is a nonsensical rant that he claims came from the Archangel Michael. So it's important to note that his current scam is that he communicated with the Archangel Michael back in the 1990s, and the Archangel Michael predicted all of the current historical, political, and worldwide events that are happening right now. And he essentially claims that he predicted all of the things that are happening right now through the Archangel Michael, and he claims that he published all of that back in the 90s. But there's a problem with that, and that is that the internet does not forget. So through his entire website, I was only able to find one reference to something from the Archangel Michael, which is essentially a nonsensical rant that makes no sense. There's no actual predictions here in this text. It's a bunch of new age word salad nonsense. I get free food lying around in the damnedest of places, applying the law of magic squares to the overall effect of the square of 12. We do not see how the entire communication system breakdown is very soon incoming. No communication system broke down. That means this man is not in communication with angels. If anything, he is in communication with demonic entities pretending to be angels. Based on the logarithmic spiral that is created, many millions of people have anticipated such an event their own way, and bears down the overall success of the failure of these enterprises. The terminology about the square of 12 and logarithmic spirals will be very familiar to the students of Bradley Cohen work. Although I myself have not studied these materials, I believe that the key point they are expressing is the one that's echoed in the Cohen materials. Time is now seen as cyclical, recurring, geometric phenomenon. This is just new age nonsense, right? I take out a sword and blaze forward, looking at that situation with uncompromising eye and being more and more simply impressed by the truths they often seen. I walk through the halls of responsibility with the shadow of the specter of obligation at my back and the knowledge of union at my front. Where's the predictions that he claims the Archangel Michael gave him in the 90s that are happening right now? No, friends, he has no evidence to support those claims. This is just another David Wilcock scam, one of many scams. And I, for one, am tired of this man making millions of dollars offering completely provably false information to people, claiming that he has some insider knowledge. Now he's literally insulting the intelligence of every Christian on planet Earth by claiming to be in contact with the Archangel Michael. He's not, and we can prove that he is not in contact with the Archangel Michael because there are biblical tests. The test of a prophet, which David Wilcock fails over and over and over and over again. The test of a prophet is very clear. If the prophet is wrong one time, he is not a prophet of God. He is not in communication with either God or God's angels, because God and God's angels would not give a prophet completely false information. David Wilcock has been wrong over and over and over and over again in these prophetic predictions that he has made since the 90s. We can go through his Ascension 2000 website and see hundreds and hundreds of predictions of things that never actually occurred. Therefore, David Wilcock fails the test of the prophet, and he is therefore not a prophet. He is therefore not in communication with any angelic or spiritual beings. If anything, David Wilcock may be in communication with demonic entities. And let's do a thought experiment. If there was a person such as David Wilcock who has made millions of dollars through New Age nonsense, lying to people, offering fake insider information, telling people we're all going to get superpowers in the year 2000. Then again, he told everybody we would get superpowers in the year 2012. If there was such a person who was a false prophet who continually made 100% wrong predictions, what are the likelihood that the Archangel Michael, the most important angel in the pantheon of angels of the Hebrew and Christian God, would communicate with such a person? Isn't it more likely that an entity who deceives, like a demonic entity, would be in communication with David Wilcock? After all, David Wilcock is and has always been a deceiver, just like a demonic entity is and will always be a deceiver. David Wilcock is a false prophet offering false hope to desperate people who cling to some belief that he has some kind of insider knowledge. Now, I have gathered together a selection of David Wilcock's 100% provably completely fake predictions that he has made over the years. And while we listen to this, I want you to pay careful attention to the test of a prophet. You get one time. If you're wrong one time, you are not in communication with either God or anything angelic. You are a false prophet who is perhaps being misled by demonic entities masquerading as angelic entities. For all that I know, having been raised Catholic and educated by the Jesuits, I'm sure there'll be some conspiracy theories about that. Yes, I was educated by Jesuit priests and nuns, and but I got a very good I got a very good education in biblical prophecy. I got a very good education in the book of Revelations. I got a very good prophecy view from the Christian perspective. And everything in me tells me that this man is a false prophet who is not in communication with any angelic entities. And for him to claim that, again, to me, is a form of consumer fraud. If you cannot prove that you're talking to angels and you're selling people books where you claim you're talking to angels, then that's a form of fraud. And there are very strict biblical rules in place here that prove that he is not in communication with angelic entities. Because if he was, he would not make so many wrong predictions. Again, you get one. If you make one wrong prediction, you are a false prophet and likely in communication with trickster spirits, demonic entities, Satan, Luciferian, whatever you want to call it. You are not in communication with angels. And I want to make it very, very clear that David Wilcock has been deceiving people for his entire life. This is just another deception. And instead of aliens this time, he's pushing angels. This man is not now, nor has he ever been in communication with angels. And I can prove that by the simple biblical test of a prophet, which he fails miserably. Now, let's take a look through the lens of time at many of David Wilcock's false, completely 100% wrong prophetic predictions of future events.
So when Garyev transformed those salamander eggs with light and captured that genetic code on the photons, zapped it into the frog eggs, I believe that's what's happening to us right now. We're moving into this new energy zone. It's activating the planets, it's heating them up, it's making the molecules actually move faster, but it's also increasing the source field vibration, which is making us become more intelligent. So we're dealing now with the next wave that's coming in 2009. As we head into 2010, 2011, they're going to start happening every couple months, and then they're going to start happening every couple weeks, and then they're going to start happening every couple days. By the time we get to 2012, we're going to be hitting new ones every hour. And towards the end, it's multiple times per second. Okay, now my readings have told me, for what it's worth, that some of us will be able to have ascended abilities. I mean, full-on ascended abilities prior to the actual shift happening. So that would be very cool, because what we're expecting after 2012 is a 100 times more harmonious utopian world where things like time travel, levitation, instant telepathy, instant healing, telekinesis are as common and as everyday as breathing.
Is that the Great Pyramid of Egypt actually has a timeline in it, and that timeline has 2012 as the most important year. 2012 is predicted as the year in which whatever the second coming of Christ is supposed to be will happen. When does the age of Aquarius come in? 2012. And that's been calculated based on constellations in the sky by mainstream astronomers. So look, things are not going to stay the way they are very much longer. The year 2012, if nothing else, represents a bifurcation point, a split between the way that things have been and the way that things are going to be. They were known about long ago, and it's all part of this spontaneous evolution that humanity is being led through at this time. It's going to be something that actually changes life as well. Then would this mean that the planet is experiencing a rise in its consciousness? That is exactly what I'm suggesting. That once the truth comes out, it will be in the context, very likely, of these people having been arrested on a massive level. There's all kinds of logistics about how that's going to be done, when that's going to be done. It is a massive operation, and I am not authorized to give all the details. This is a very different thing. This is not an Earth-killing event. This is an Earth-birthing event. And they're very clear on that when you read these ancient prophecies. That the Earth has to go through its worst point. It has to go through the dark night of the soul. And we're having that now. It's very after we go through the worst point, there is this event, and it's so amazing. We are in the midst of an overthrow of the deep state. Everyone take a deep breath now.
I suppose that's enough of that. It's enough to display that David Wilcock has made a multitude of prophetic predictions, all of which have failed. Every single one of them that I have been able to find. He makes major predictions about earth changes that never come. He makes major predictions saying we're all going to get godlike superpowers. He said that both in the year 2000. That never happened. Then he brought back that grift or scam in the year 2012, leading up to 2012. And nothing that he said about 2012 ever happened, ever took place. This man is the worst psychic on planet Earth. And by the way, some of you know that I have continually studied many different psychics. And for me to say that he is the worst psychic on the planet Earth, I don't say that lightly. I say that having studied him for quite some time now. Other fake psychics are better at it. There are some fake psychics that are very good at making very vague predictions that they can sort of claim they got correct. David Wilcock, show me one correct prophetic prediction of David Wilcock about future events that actually took place. Now, he likes to change letters and numbers around and somehow connect the dots to somehow try to explain why his predictions were correct. No. His predictions are garbage, as is his claim. We can analyze David Wilcock and really, the conclusion that I've come to is that David Wilcock desperately wants to be someone important. His ego is out of control. He is a slave to his own ego, doing things like buying his own books and things like that to increase the fake sales numbers, using bot accounts to fake the number of live viewers or views on his videos. And this is all things we can prove that he has done. This man is a slave to his ego who desperately wants to be someone important, right? He himself has said that his mother told him that he would change the world, and he's claimed to be the world's most important prophet. Come on. You're the most important prophet, but you get literally every prophetic prediction you put out there about future events completely 100% wrong over and over and over and over again. David Wilcock is a deceiver, and I believe that he has been scamming people for false information for his entire so-called career. And, part of me wonders, at what point this man has made millions and millions of dollars deceiving people with provably false information, provably fake predictions of future events that never take place. At what point do people say, no more? You're not going to get any more money from the UFO community. You're not going to get any more money from the spirituality or New Age community, because you are a false prophet who has been selling false information, false government insider whistleblowers, and more for decades. At some point, people have to wake up and say, no matter how much I like the fake stories that this man tells, his so-called true information has no value and therefore is not worthy of paying for. But we're always on to the next scam with David Wilcock. The last one was the hover car scam, right? Wherein he promised that he would have a working prototype within a year. And by the way, there's all kinds of problems with that. He claimed that they were going to use somebody else's patents to generate a commercial product for sale. That's illegal. You cannot do that. You can't just take somebody's patent and develop a commercial product based on somebody. That's what patents are for, to protect intellectual property. So even if we submit that the Salvador Payas patents are 100% true and real and workable technology, he's not legally able to take that technology and create a commercial product for sale with it. But that's exactly what he claims to be doing with the scam aerospace company, Stavati Aerospace. And by the way, we can get into that. This man's making absolutely ridiculous claims because the guy's name is Chris Beskar, that Star Wars named Beskar armor from The Mandalorian named that after Chris Beskar to thank him for giving Industrial Light and Magic spaceships designs that they used in the Star Wars prequels. Garbage. Prove it, David Wilcock. Those are huge claims. Why would George Lucas or Industrial Light and Magic pay somebody royalties for spaceship designs when they have their own in-house people to create those designs? It's absolutely ludicrous. This man is, somebody in the live chat earlier suggested he's off his meds. I don't know if he's off his meds or he just needs meds, because the level of fakery, fraudery, and bullshittery out of this man is ridiculous. And now we see him ramping up. He's got that grift knob turned up to 12. Forget 10 or 11. He's got that grift knob at maximum. He is literally begging people for money in this latest video. And why is that? Because he gave millions of dollars to a scam aerospace company in the form of Stavati Aerospace, who we can prove has lied about having government contracts to produce laser weapons in the past, has lied to investors, continually solicited investor money. And for decades now, they've been showing everybody pretty pictures of super high-tech aircraft and have yet to produce one single aircraft that they can show people. They have yet to produce a single aircraft capable of a simple flight test. But David Wilcock is claiming that they're going to revolutionize the aerospace industry. They're going to create hover cars that have free energy engines. They're going to create free energy engines that you could buy for a few $1,000s, and you'll never have to work again. You know, you'll never have to work to pay for power, heat, lighting, energy. You know, the old saying rings true. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. What are the odds that this man who has been caught lying to people for decades, this man who has made millions and millions of dollars selling people fake government whistleblowers, fake secret space program people, right? He even used a court-martialed child molester as a source with Project Camelot. Kerry Cassidy and him used Bill Brockbrader, who is a 100% fraud, who got caught molesting his own, I think it was his sister-in-law, and was court-martialed and thrown out of the military and is right now a fugitive from justice. That's one of David Wilcock's government insiders, a court-martialed child molester, fugitive from justice. And what's next? What's next is that David Wilcock, as I predicted, continues to use a man named Pete Peterson as a source. And let's get into Pete Peterson because, you know, we have been over this so many times that I finally have dug out some of the paperwork from previous investigations. This is a man named Pete Peterson, who is another fake government whistleblower of David Wilcock. 1 second. Let me make sure that we got that on screen. Yes, we do. All right. We're going to get into this. I predicted 2 years ago when Pete Peterson died that David Wilcock would continue to use him and milk him as a source. Because do you know what the best source to have if you're a con artist, scammer, grifter selling false information? A dead source. No one can check or verify that Pete Peterson told David Wilcock any of the things that he's currently attributing him as a source for. But it gets worse, because not only is David Wilcock using a dead source, he is a fake government whistleblower and always has been. Pete Peterson, another fake government whistleblower of David Wilcock. This is his big source before Corey Goode. And we have just seen that Corey Goode admitted under oath that all of his stories were fake and he's never been to space. So look at David Wilcock's track record. Okay, Pete Peterson lied about his education and credentials. He was never a doctor of anything. People using him to sell fake stories like Kerry Cassidy and David Wilcock called him doctor, but there's no evidence he was a doctor of anything. If anything, he's a doctor of bullshitology. In fact, Pete Peterson has no real doctorate from any real university or college. And in fact, he lied even about his bachelor's degrees, citing a college that does not really exist. In other words, he claimed that he got a bachelor's of science degree from a university that's not a real university. Pete Peterson lied about being a recipient of the Order of Lenin Award from the Soviet Union. A check with a Russian historian revealed that there is a list of every recipient that has ever been given that award. Pete Peterson is not on that list, either as Pete Peterson or under his legal name. David Wilcock and others have claimed that Pete Peterson worked for Ronald Reagan. We did extensive checking into that claim. Pete Peterson never worked for Ronald Reagan as a science or technology advisor, as he claimed. A search of the Ronald Reagan Library revealed absolutely no mention of this man. If he was truly a science and technology advisor for Ronald Reagan, there would be some mention of him. After all, every minute of every president's day is logged. If they have a meeting with a science and technology advisor, it's in their library. There is zero mention of Pete Peterson in the Ronald Reagan Library. This means he lied and he never worked for Ronald Reagan. There's no evidence at all that this man, Pete Peterson, ever worked for the government. There is substantial and supportive evidence that he was sort of a con artist. Next, Pete Peterson was not an early computer pioneer, as he claimed. We searched multiple computer museums around the world. No one in the computer world that we spoke to ever heard of this man, his company, or his claimed computer that beat Apple, Tandy, Commodore, Atari, and more to market in the early 1980s. His computer never existed, and there is zero mention of this man or his claimed computer in the historical records. We spoke to Dave Haney, who is a real early computer pioneer, most famous for his work at Commodore and Amiga. And Dave Haney said that this man's claims are 100% fictitious. He was neither known or prominent in the early days of the personal computer revolution, as he claimed, and Dave Haney would know. He lived that world. There is not a single shred of evidence to support Pete Peterson's claims in either computer periodicals, sales records, historical records, or media from that time. In other words, he just made up the fact that he was an early computer pioneer. He was not. Pete Peterson did not work for the Russian space program, as he claimed. We spoke with several people who are experts in the history of the Russian space program. There is zero record of his having been involved with or worked for the Russian space program. And if an American had actually done so, there would have been records and information available to support his claims. There is not a single shred of evidence he actually worked for any Russian company, public or private, or anything space related. Next, Pete Peterson was involved in several stock pump and dump scams, wherein companies used his fictitious fake education and claims of being an early computer pioneer to pump up stock prices for early startups. All the companies he did this with failed and went belly up shortly after he joined the companies offering public stock. Next, Pete Peterson ran a GoFundMe scam with David Wilcock, claiming he was under some form of government attack involving the illegal seizure of his home, bulldozers, dumpsters, and more. This was, in fact, a routine home foreclosure for his girlfriend's home that he did not own or have any legal right to ever. Every line in the text body of the GoFundMe was a lie. They raised approximately $60,000. Pete Peterson died shortly after the GoFundMe, and no one was ever prosecuted or held responsible for scamming the public out of $60,000 with a fictitious pity-generating story. Okay. Though David Wilcock claimed that Pete Peterson was a government insider and whistleblower, there is absolutely zero evidence that Pete Peterson ever worked for any government agency. There is zero evidence he was anything other than a con artist who ran techno scams and stock pump and dump scams. Someone involved in activities like that would never have been given clearance to work on government projects, especially secret ones. His education was also 100% fake, which means he could never and would never have passed a basic government background check. This man could not have gotten a job at the DMV or the post office, let alone working for presidents on secret government projects. It would be impossible for him to get hired. David Wilcock claimed Pete Peterson was killed or murdered by the senior citizens home he resided in at the time of his death. Pete Peterson died of natural causes. This is public record. There were no reports of any accidental injections, no investigations. His death was ruled a natural death, pardon me, of natural causes. If he was accidentally injected with anything, there would have been a major investigation. There was no investigation. David Wilcock apparently just made all of this up after having said the people at the senior citizens home took excellent care of him at the end of his life. I spoke with several nurses who cared for Pete Peterson at that facility. Both were shocked someone would essentially accuse them of murder with absolutely no evidence of that. It gets worse. Jay Widener, the producer of Cosmic Disclosure, stated that Pete Peterson was a very sick and very senile old man who could barely string two sentences together that made any sense. Jay and others had to film him for hours on end and then heavily edit what he said in order to massage anything that made any sense at all out of what he said. Jay has publicly stated that Pete Peterson was a sick, senile old man that David Wilcock was taking advantage of in order to have some source or whistleblower to claim he was getting insider intel from. And finally, in his books, David Wilcock claimed that Pete Peterson and his company invented super advanced 40-core computer processors that were 10 years ahead of anything Intel or AMD were producing, and that his company was a decade ahead of everything else as far as computer processors. Pete Peterson and his company hold no patents for microprocessor technology or anything else for that matter. His company was a registered LLC attached to a P.O. box. He had no office, no manufacturing or research plants, no history of producing any products at all, no employees, no press or any other record of these claims being even within the realm of possibility. So, you know, this whole situation, it gets ridiculous. David Wilcock is continuing to use a 100% fake source in the form of Pete Peterson, and he does it throughout this entire video, which we are now going to share. And I don't know how much we will get through this tonight. Well, before we get to that one, I just want to share very quickly. We'll put our fair use banner up, and I'm going to share this other video where David Wilcock talks about Pete Peterson, his fake government insider source. And again, I just want to mention that if you're going to stand on stages or make public YouTube videos claiming that you have government insiders and it can be proven that that person never worked for the government, then what you are doing is a form of consumer fraud. You are lying to sell fake stories. And that is exactly what David Wilcock does. He desperately wants to be important. He desperately wants to pretend that he has government insiders. No, he doesn't. He has frauds that he gets to masquerade as government insiders.
Former insider Pete Peterson did pass away. This happened in July of 2019, and it was a very sad thing for all of us. Pete Peterson was widely regarded as the most genius inventor in the history of the military-industrial complex.
That's garbage. Show me any person that will concur with that statement. Pete Peterson was a low-level grifter, scam artist, techno scammer who pretended to be an early computer pioneer. He holds no patents. We can find no products that he ever invented, manufactured, or produced. This is a completely and totally false statement.
There are at least 50 different unique patents that he came up with on his own.
Where are the patents? You can do a patent search, David Wilcock. This man held no patents. Another false statement. Are we seeing the pattern here? This is what happens when you use a 100% completely fake so-called government whistleblower. You're making completely false statements. 50 patents? Show them to me. List them. We did a patent search. He didn't have one patent, let alone 50 patents, you liar.
Many of which probably evolved into multi-billion-dollar industries within the classified world.
Yeah. Okay. So this man invented all this technology that evolved into billion-dollar industries, but somehow he died penniless and broke in an old folks' home. And previous to that, his residence was him and his girlfriend's residence was foreclosed on. He couldn't pay a mortgage on a home that was, $400 or $500 a month. But somehow we're supposed to believe David Wilcock's claim that he invented so many things that were worth billions of dollars. No, he didn't. He died penniless and broke. And by the way, when the bank people cleaned out that home that was foreclosed on, it was filled with dead cats and bottles of piss.
We have all kinds of amazing stuff that he's done.
What has he done? What has he done that you can prove he's done? And I don't mean reading from his fake bio, claiming that he won awards like the Russian Order of Lenin Award. No, he didn't. Claiming that he worked for the Russian space program. No, he didn't. Claiming that he was an early computer pioneer. No, he wasn't. Facts matter, David Wilcock, and your fake false whistleblower falls apart under the least little bit of scrutiny, which means either David Wilcock did absolutely zero vetting of him, or he did and he knew the man was a fraud but decided to use him to bolster his fake stories for sale to the general public.
I was his friend from 2009 up until his death, talking to him an average of twice a week. And I also met many other insiders through Pete Peterson, who I am still in regular contact with.
Okay, so he met other insiders from his first fake senile old man insider that was a complete and total fraud. The poison fruit analogy really applies to this. If one person is a complete and total fraud and introduces you to other people, why would you trust the other people? The root is rotten here.
And he had said that this is something he had just told me, that if this had gone down within the next 6 months, all the declass stuff that's getting ready to happen, if we could make it through the next 6 months, he was going to be able to talk about anything he wanted.
By the way, none of that declassification ever happened. This is 2 years ago. More completely now provable false statements from David Wilcock using completely and totally fake so-called government whistleblowers.
All right, well, let me.
All right, and we're done. We're not going to listen to any more of this. This man told a lot of wacky stories about secret space bases and aliens, and David Wilcock just ate it up. David Wilcock apparently believed that everything this man was saying was 100% true and real stories. The man's entire background is false. So pardon me if I don't believe that, a fake government whistleblower should be trusted when he starts telling fantastical fairy tales about aliens and whatever. Okay, we'll get into the David Wilcock video. I'm not sure how much of this we'll get through. If we don't get through it tonight, we'll be back tomorrow night to get through the rest of it. And I know for those of you just joining us, you're watching Truthseekers, recovering David Wilcock's latest stream of garbage. But I thought, I'm sorry for the length of this, but I thought it's important to establish that this man, Pete Peterson, is a complete and total fake fraud whistleblower that never worked for the government and lied every time he opened his mouth. Because throughout this entire new video, David Wilcock cites him as a source. And it's important that we look at this through the correct lens. We have to realize that David Wilcock is not only using a dead man as a source, who no one can verify if he said those things or not, but the root itself is poison because the root is rotten. Pete Peterson is a complete and total fraud. So who cares what a dead fraud said that was never proven to work for the government? But this is the wacky world of David Wilcock, where make-believe is real. The wacky world of Wilcock. How much money can he steal from people for his so-called true stories? These aren't true stories. These are fictional fairy tales generated by a narcissistic sociopath that has made millions of dollars scamming people with this level of garbage. He doesn't do any vetting. He just throws stuff out there claiming he has government insiders. And I really think that there needs to be some improvement to the legal system, because why? One might ask themselves, because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a law enforcement officer, but is it legal for David Wilcock to claim that he's talking to government whistleblowers and insiders who are giving him this true and accurate, real information? And then we find out that the person that he's citing as a source is some senile, sick old man that he's literally taking advantage of? What kind of narcissistic sociopath takes advantage of a sick, senile old man in order to make money selling fake alien stories? David Wilcock is that sort of man. But it's important. I wanted to establish this foundation, that the entire foundation with which David Wilcock is building these fake stories on crumbles, because this man is not who he claimed David Wilcock claimed to be. And he has made millions of dollars selling this man's fake stories, writing whole books, making television shows, selling courses, citing this man as a source. He's a fraud. The root is rotten, and therefore any fruit from that tree is also, by definition, rotten. All right, let's get into David Wilcock claiming Archangel Michael's prophecies of transformation. And by the way, we'll wait a second before we by the way, a lot of people have noticed that during the off-camera times, there's a lot of sniffing going on. Take from that what you will. I noticed it too. I don't know what's going on there, but people are speculating, right? One second. We're going to check in with the live chat before we begin this. I apologize for not checking in sooner. Welcome all members of the live chat. We've got an incredible attendance out there tonight in the chat room. Good to see all of you, and welcome to the Rumble chatters and the Twitch chatters as well. And you people listening on Facebook and Twitter as well, all are welcome. Let me just make sure that we haven't. All right, we've got one super chat from Spooky, who says David profits with an F, not profits with a PH. Yes, yeah, I agree. All right, we will begin our journey. 2 hours and 38 minutes from a guy who swore he was only going to do 90 minutes. And here he comes. And by the way, somebody told me that this beginning is some sort of slight against me. I don't know that that's true, but if it is, you know, whatever. He does not specifically mention us, but towards the end of this broadcast, he makes a lot of legal claims that are very problematic. We'll get into that. He claims we illegally released those depositions. That is 100% false statement. And we're investigating, you know, what we can do about that. I'm not going to have this guy making false legal claims against me or my show or my company. And here he's laughing and sniffing in the background. I really don't know what's going on. One hell of an introduction, right?
Hey, how's it going? How are you guys doing out there? Can you hear me okay? I got sunglasses on because I don't want to start frying my eyes until we're actually, like, you know, on air and ready to get going, but I think that time has arrived. So welcome. And it looks like everybody can hear me. Yeah, I'm seeing it on the stream. That's good. Is the audio okay? That's the only other thing I need to know. People are saying no sound.
$10,000 worth of equipment that he bought apparently with charitable donations, and he doesn't know if his microphones are working.
Well, see, that's exactly the kind of stuff we got to find out.
And by the way, I don't know exactly. I'd have to look at the paperwork. But remember David Wilcock scammed charity where he collected more than $150,000 and then did zero charitable work. He bought a lot of equipment with that, though, and software.
Okay, people are saying they can hear me perfectly. That's good. Need some money. There's some trolls out there, you know, and you deal with it. But anyway, hello. This is David, and this is my wide-angle shot.
Gotta have 7
so
camera
get
angles.
in all your comments here. They are spilling in by the bucket loads. It is truly something to see. Show us your feet. Here we go. I sizzled it out for you guys. I made sure, where are we here? I made sure to wear the most sizzly shoes that I've got. If
Yeah,
I'm
because
ever
nothing
gonna go
says
to the
talking to
Grammy
angels
Awards,
like wearing ruby
and I
slippers.
wanted to win a Grammy,
right?
you got to have purple socks, okay? Because you want to be LGBTQ compliant. This is kind of a new Hollywood thing you have to do. And then you
yeah.
wear, sequins on your shoes themselves. This is an important step.
It's a good point. This man is the director of advanced technology for an aerospace company, and he doesn't know how to work a microphone. Excellent.
You need to have a little handkerchief for blowing your nose, which you're never actually going to do because it's too fancy. And of course, you need to have your prop cigarette so that in the event that you win,
This is just
you
bizarre.
want to look like you really know what you're doing. So the cigarette has to, if it was lit, that would be very bad. Cigarette has to look pretty good, you know. You want to make sure it's all going to work out. This is one of those prop cigarettes, but it doesn't really work very well in terms of making smoke. But I think it's funny, and I actually like it. So,
Big Mike
welcome.
shoes.
Welcome, friends. Welcome, and we're going to talk
There's
about
no
a lot of
place
fun
like
stuff today.
there's
folks.
no place like Scamville.
See, there's like a
right?
cigarette technique that is necessary to,
A piece
if you
of
wanted to go
handkerchief.
into
Yeah, it's
Hollywood,
yellow.
if you want to be in a movie, you have to be able to have the cigarette in your mouth. See, I can't even do it. You have to get a certain amount of saliva and make sure that the cigarette holds
good things
onto your
have happened.
mouth in a very tight and direct way so that when you're talking like this, the cigarette just keeps moving.
Maybe. Yeah.
And you might even kick out some smoke now and then. But there's no real effort involved because it's become, a pretty automatic process at this point. So, boy, you guys, I don't know. We're off to a lame start here. If I'm smoking at the beginning of the show, I'm kind of...
Yeah, and I just wonder, would a man that was really in contact with, angelic beings be starting a live stream about communication with those beings in this ridiculous manner? This is clown shoes.
kind of having a detrimental effect on minors, and
And by the way, he's literally wearing clown shoes during this broadcast.
we don't really want that, right? So anyway, I'm in a good mood, yes, and thank you guys for noticing that. Where are we here? Okay, I've got everything set up for you. I actually have the Fender guitar here, the Stratocaster lit up with lights. I've got the stairs lit up with lights. I tested everything. I actually took some time and made sure that this was going to work.
Yeah, and he'll do that
I'm
for
very
2 more
excited.
hours.
I've been underground for, my God, a year. I haven't
agree.
even done a video in a year, and it's been quite an experience what I've been going through in terms of what I am doing and what I'm working on. So this has been quite a journey, but obviously, if you have been following my stuff, then you will notice that in the last year, everything that we've been talking about has only become more prevalent, more obvious.
Nothing has become more prevalent. Nothing has become more obvious. He's reaching.
And it's very clear that there's something going on that is leading up to things that I don't want to say, because you got to remember that when I'm doing this, I have to speak in cipher. If I don't, if I go on the nose with certain words that I'm going to say, then there's going to be a much easier detectability, which actually causes a score on the inside. But, this is a
Why would somebody in communication with angels have to speak in riddles?
heavy-duty conspiracy theory I'm starting to lay on you guys here. I better get a drink of water here.
Oh, hold on 1 second. And by the way, his streams are filled with commercials. Like he has to take extra caution to he has to take extra time to jam more commercials in, which is another stupid thing. If you were really in communication with angels and angels wanted you to share their message to the world, would you be concerned with ad revenue?
Anyway.
More proof that he's a false prophet.
Yes, I have the buffalo over my head, and it does form a halo. And in fact, I can make it into any color theoretically.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to go into some darker areas, I could say, oh, yeah, let's see what we can do with a nice satanic halo.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be
He's
interesting?
back to
But
that,
we're not going to
too.
do that. We're going to keep it blue because that's the side that we want to be on, so we're not going to mess around with that kind of stuff. I just like it.
Blue
It's a good
portal
prop, I
behind
think,
him.
so
Yeah.
I want to do things that are fun.
And
talk
again, why would somebody in communication with angels need props
about things that are enjoyable.
and costumes and ad revenue? More proof this man is no prophet. He's not in communication with anything but demonic entities who want to help him steal more money from people. He hasn't made enough millions of dollars with his false, fake information. He's got to keep the grift going.
I did move my back when YouTube would actually give you something of value for having 100,000 subscribers. That's when I got that. It's made out of actual real silver. And no, I haven't melted it down. I think it's better to have it up there and, have this silly halo over my head and talk about stuff. So that's what we're doing. You're here. You've allowed yourself to put up with me for this long. Being absent, you don't hate me. You've apparently decided that I'm still a worthwhile human being in your eyes and not someone just to be scorned and hated. Not like that ever happens, nobody ever gets upset at you when you do this kind of stuff publicly. It's always just
and here's another thing. Throughout this, he has this thread of like, people are angry at me for giving them this information. No, people are angry because you continually get caught scamming people. That if anybody's angry, it's because of that. Not because your information is so accurate and dangerous.
As smooth as molasses. Yeah. So the point is we've got a whole lot of interesting things going on in the world and in my own life. And I'm trying to maybe just have a casual session with you guys. I didn't want to do a whole bunch of slides because when I get into a slide mode, I get very amped up. I've got a certain number of them and I got to get them done within a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and that's one of his proven maneuvers. Somehow, if I'm selling lies, but I have 300 slides to help sell those lies, that makes this so much better, right?
However, there were multiple requests here in the comments section. As you can see, people were asking me about wanting to have what kind of shirt I was going to wear. This is apparently really important to you guys.
Yeah, because everybody really cares what kind of shirt he's wearing. Sure.
So,
again, with the narcissism,
I said, well, do
you
have the capacity? Do you have the ability to handle the sizzle jacket? Because I don't want to come out here with
and nothing says talking to angels like wearing ruby slippers and sequin jackets.
This kind of stuff on my feet, when there's actual sequins on my clothing and there's actual gold inlay in my jacket. Do you realize how hard?
This is why his streams are 3 hours, because he spends 20 minutes talking about his clothes.
Hard I'm working for you. I mean, this takes effort. This causes me to sweat. And so if you can't appreciate that, it really hurts my feelings. And I think we need to talk about it because
what a ridiculous,
I did all of this.
What a ridiculous way. Hi, I'm talking to angels, and let me have a narcissistic meltdown about how hard I work for everybody right at the start of the broadcast. It's ridiculous.
Make you feel good.
We should skip the first half hour.
If you still have stress in our relationship, then perhaps I can only do it for so long and then I start laughing. All right, where are we? Where was
I? Agree, Paulie.
Boom. So it's good. It's good to be back, and it's good to have a little fun and be a little sarcastic and make fun of myself. And
yeah, I don't know. Take a bath and piss. You're going to smell like piss. Stuff.
Because it is all about transformation. And
yeah, you wonder, right?
My
Davina?
work has taken some very strange twists and turns. My goal actually is to only talk for 1 hour today.
Oh, first it was an hour.
Do it a la carte off the top of my head without notes, so that if things happen where
his goal is to talk for an hour, he talked for 2 hours and 38 minutes.
Can make slides
almost
and
3
do
hours.
Cinematic re-upload. That'll be good. So I want to take away the restrictions that come when I'm so heavily wrapped up in slides. That means I'm not really talking, I'm not as funny, and I get so amped up and then I can't finish and it takes like 4 hours. And that's not really what I'm trying to do. I want to be just cool and relaxed. So what are we actually here for? Why am I here today and what's going on?
PP power.
What we're talking about is some very interesting twists and turns that my life has taken that led to what's now 5 books being written, which are called the Michael Prophecies. And these books span from, originally when they were written was between 1996 and 1999. Let me take a drink of water here.
Yeah, and he doesn't even realize that he's got plot holes here because he claims that he spent the last 18 months writing these books, but then in other parts of this broadcast, he claims that the books were already written. So which is it? Did you write them in the 1990s and you're just recycling your garbage? Or did you write them in the last year and a half?
Which camera is that? That one looks pretty good for a while. So when I wrote the Michael Prophecies, originally I had no idea that it was ever going to be seen by anyone. I had jobs that only paid $5.77 an hour, taking care of developmentally disabled people. And so I was involved in toileting. I was involved in diaper changes. I dealt with severe, profound, non-ambulatory developmentally disabled, which means they can't talk and they can't walk. And their level of mental inhibition, if you will, there's certain words you probably don't want to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's talked about this before. For a very, very short time, David Wilcock had a real job taking care of developmentally disabled adults in a facility for that. And he left all that behind to become essentially a new age scammer and complains constantly about how little money he got paid doing that.
Their mental inhibition gets them down to an IQ, which is called severe profound. And so that's like, I guess, below 50 or somewhere around 50, but it's very low. That's what I started out doing because, not that I wanted to be doing that for the rest of my life, but it was the only way I could see to get relevant internship credit to augment on my bachelor's degree in psychology so I could go get a doctorate in psychology. And then the reason why...
And he never got a doctorate in psychology.
I wanted to get a doctorate in psychology was actually to throw it away and become a UFO researcher. And I felt that looking at people like Dr. John Mack, Dr. Stephen Greer, I said, you know, I need that PhD or nobody's even going to take me seriously. And I since had a different course of action, but...
Yeah, so essentially he wanted to get a doctor's certificate to bolster his UFO, you know, career plans.
When this all had started in my life, the Archangel Michael contact, it was after I had already graduated from college. I'd actually come out here from upstate New York by train because I didn't have enough money to go on an airplane flight.
Yeah. Oh, my life was so difficult. I had to take a train somewhere.
So I used
Crimea River
to travel here to Colorado, Boulder, Colorado, to apply to Naropa Institute, which is a graduate school that teaches transpersonal psychology. That was one of the degrees you could get, and that was the one I was really the most interested in. So transpersonal sounded really cool to me, and I got on a train, and I actually just rode the train all the way out here through the most horrific...
And by the way, this is important to note. The Naropa University is a private university in Boulder, Colorado. It was founded by Tibetan Buddhist teacher Chogyam Trungpa. It is named for 11th century Indian Buddhist sage Napira on the abbot of Narani. The university describes itself as Buddhist-inspired, ecumenical, and non-sectarian rather than Buddhist. So it's not a real college. He was going to get a doctorate in bullshit from a Buddhist organization.
I mean, 2 days of not sleeping from New York to Colorado. Oh my God. You're up all night and you're looking at this thing going, dude, am I ever going to get off of this train? And then you eventually get here, and I had a really hard time adjusting. I applied to school. I started to apply for temp jobs, and I got denied by Naropa. And that sent me back to New York State.
I agree.
And all of a
Trolley,
sudden, I had to
troll.
get out of
And
my
thanks for being a
house
member.
that I grew up in because my mother wanted me to move on with my life. I'm very glad she did that. You know, if she'd
Yeah, it's a
allowed me to
pity
stick
party.
around,
Yeah.
you might not be seeing me here right now. So I moved back to my college
Yeah, essentially his rich parents told him to go get a job. That's what the translation of this is.
town and started to get these jobs to intern for an eventual doctorate in psychology.
A toilet
And
paper
it was
degree.
at this
Yeah.
time that I started to delve more and more into the UFO arena.
Well, he never
online.
produced them.
And I graduated in 95. And then by the end of 95, we had AOL, America Online. And you'd have to dial in. And the first speed I used
He
was
got denied by a
2400
fake
baud,
college.
2.4K
Yes.
per second. To
He
try
was
to listen to
rejected
stuff
by
like
a
Art
fake
Bell
school.
and
Yeah.
Richard C. Hoagland and Stephen Greer,
Yeah.
Linda Moulton,
He couldn't get into a fake college. That says something.
Howe, Danny and Brinkley. I mean, these were the people who were out there. And at that time, I wanted to be involved. But how am I, some kid in the middle of New York State with no money and working for $6 an hour, ever going to get into that
He
circuit?
could have got it
Well,
by mail. Yeah.
I believe that the key was to make contributions and to start to advance the knowledge. So I began doing research and posting at
You're
Richard C.
probably right,
Hoagland's
Farmer
discussion
26.
forum, which was on enterprisemission.com. And I realized pretty early that it's all about the headline in terms of whether anybody's going to read what you say. So the best headline wins. If you have a headline that draws people in,
Well,
they're going to read more.
I
So
have
it
never,
took-
just to be clear, I have never confirmed or denied that he actually worked at a facility for developmentally disabled, but he has mentioned it many times. And it does stand to reason that perhaps a student in psychology would get a job like that. So I've never been able to prove or disprove that claim.
took me, my God, 4 years of basically stalking Richard Hoagland on his discussion forums in various places before he ever even paid attention to me.
Yeah, those were his
4
heroes,
years.
all the
he-
early
He kind of
grifters.
answered a couple of my posts on the forum back in the day, but hardly ever. And he was
He got
number
fake
one guy
rejected
on
from
the
a fake
radio.
college. Yes.
So the other thing that Art Bell was always talking about is remote viewing. And I said, well, I want to use every avenue of research gathering technology available to me to try to get to the truth. I don't want to be left behind in the
That's
search
true,
for
Red
knowledge.
Brick
And so
Investigations
if
1.
Art has these people on like Major Ed Dames, and he keeps talking about this solar kill shot, that the sun is going to give off this flash and roast everybody. And then Art would say, like, hash browns. Art, you don't want to indulge in the idea of people dying. I think it's probably a good public relations strategy not to take a lot of pleasure in that. But they did.
And we're 15 minutes in, and so far this man has said nothing.
And so I'm like, solar kill shot, what solar flash? What, everybody who listened to Art Bell knew about the solar flash from 1995 onward because they were always talking about it. So Major Ed Dames would give you a really impressive presentation
Yeah, he did.
about 99%.
And he's back to that,
accurate remote
Davina.
viewing
And thanks for
protocols
being
that
a
allow
member.
people to perceive information at a distance without the use of their common perceptual faculties, but only through extrasensory perception.
Stormcrow, good
And it
observation.
turns out that this has been academically verified. But they don't want you to know this, they meaning the traditional establishment, because
Yeah, it's interesting.
the
David Wilcock is back to old grifts, like the solar flash, like he's Edgar Casey reincarnated, like he's channeling angels now. He's got superpowers again.
the human divine force has always been suppressed. They don't want you to know that you are a creator being, that you have godlike powers. That's the promise of Jesus in John 14:12. As I do these things, so shall you do them. Meaning, as I do miracles like walking on water and the voice of power, so shall you do these things.
Yeah, and he's very fond of this. He's very fond of this stupid, constant statement that it is in the Bible, but that is in relation to the apostles of Christ, not New Age guru, scammers. That Bible verse is not there, to prove that you can have superpowers because you're a New Age scammer. he kind of forgets that, and boy, does he use that. He uses that an awful lot. One second, I have a fun video that I want to share with all of you, which is very, very interesting. Apparently, Mr. Ian has been training our artificial intelligence engine to redo some of David Wilcock's videos. And I, for one, think that this is a great thing. Well, let's get back to this, and I'll find that video. We'll play it for you in a moment.
So I'm not trying to sermonize here, but I'm saying that one of the things that started to happen after I got out of college is I had all these ideas about what I wanted to do with my life, and it really came thundering to the earth when I went out there to Colorado. I applied to this graduate school. I handed them a list of 300 books I'd already read on UFOs. I said,
and this part is
name
crazy.
any book on that list spontaneously, and I will give you as thorough of a dissertation on its contents as you want. And what I didn't realize at the time is that that's probably going to make them very angry because it's braggadocio, it's showing off. And so the guy who was interviewing me was very brusque, and he absolutely refused to ask me anything about any of the books. It's like, well, you want me to be in...
Yeah, I love this. So he's upset because the person at the college admissions place didn't want to hear about all the UFO books that he had, studied. Like, how is that relevant to your college admissions to say, oh, I read 300 books on UFOs? And this is also another diatribe of David Wilcock, that he got the equivalent of a doctor's degree in UFOs because he read 300 UFO books. It's absolutely kind of ridiculous. And by the way, I mentioned the AI that we have trained on David Wilcock to redo some of his videos. Remember that quote from the Bible that he's so fond of, that you'll be able to do miracles? Yeah, this is the way that it should go. What we have done is we have told the AI to show David Wilcock in his full demonic state, channeling the demons that he talks to get his false, fake information that he tries to sell people. And this is what our AI came up with.
Galaxy, the alchemy of Jesus Christ, is that you will become like him. John 14:12. As I do these things, so shall you do them, and greater things. Cognitive abilities, psychic abilities, telepathy, seeing the future, all of these things are rolled in with that concept. So when we're looking at the possibility of liberating ourselves from the suffering.
Oh, I love it. And we'll have more AI-generated images of David Wilcock communicating with the demons that he gets his false information from. False prophet David Wilcock. We'll have more of those in the future.
Attendee at your college, I think it's kind of important that you would see.
I want to talk about these UFO books that I read during my college admission interview. They don't care, David Wilcock, how many books you read on UFOs. It's ridiculous and narcissistic again.
What I do, but they weren't. And I've had this over and over again. If you have to forge your own path. And so Hoagland didn't want to pay attention to me for 4 years. He's got 20 million people listening to him. And he's on like at least once a week.
Mid-Journey.
On our bell. So yeah, it was
we have
kind of a big deal to get his attention, if you will. And I eventually did, but it took a long, long, long time.
I agree, Aaron Flores. And thanks for being a member.
Very much having these remote viewing ideas in mind, saying, hey, let's take all the avenues, because Art Bell really was the hot spot for all kinds
He's
of
reading 300 comic
research. And I said,
shut up, there's still books.
Do everything.
Conspiracy.
Let's research the abominable snowman. Let's research Atlantis. Let's research crop circles. Let's research HARP weather modification.
Yeah,
let's
Hoagland got it wrong.
Illuminati. Let's research Satanism. Let's research.
And that's interesting.
Every single.
That was his big inspiration. Somebody who got the face on Mars 100% wrong and more.
Weird thing that there might be stuff that they don't want you to know about. Let's just do all of it. I want to do all of it. I want to know everything, as ugly and as horrible as it might smell in that dumpster fire. It's on, and you got to go in there and take a look. So yeah, let's take a look at this. Let's see what the heck is going on here. So that led to a whole process of exploration where I was very focused on.
So he read a lot of UFO and books on, ancient mysteries. I don't understand how that makes him some kind of a prophet, but okay.
Figuring out how to use remote viewing as a tool
His head's
for
big
this
enough.
research. But remote viewing in and of itself seemed very limiting because the protocol was designed to prohibit spoken word. And I actually found out from an insider, Dr. Pete Peterson, years later.
Okay, here we go. He's going to start using Pete Peterson. And notice he called him Dr. Pete Peterson. Pete Peterson wasn't even a college graduate, let alone a doctor. So here's David Wilcock pushing 100% provably fake education of a dead man. He's going to use a dead man as a source here and claim that a dead man is a doctor who was never a doctor, who never even went to college. Congratulations, David Wilcock. You're a clown.
That, yeah, there was a consistent product of spoken word in people's minds when they did remote viewing in the early days, and they specifically designed the remote viewing protocols to stop that from happening and to stop people from listening to it, because it turns out that if you listen to the voices, it's some kind of biblical good guy angel talking, and they weren't really into that.
There's no proof that David Wilcock is talking to angels. That's his assessment. Keith Gardeck with a kind and generous $20 super chat says he sounds like Jordan Peterson with severe head trauma. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that he does sound like Jordan Peterson with head trauma. He sounds completely unhinged, if you ask me. At some point, I think that he just lost the script. But thank you, Mr. Gardeck, for your kind and generous donation and to help us and for helping us to praise the cash. Praise the cash. I will be reading any super chats as they come in. We're monitoring the live chat, and I'm caught up right now. So any super chats we will read, and thank you. We read every single super chat, and we thank all of you kind and generous benefactors. Tonight we'll be reading them as they come in, and thank you, Keith.
And so these angels are around. I mean, they're ready to talk. If you want to talk, they're ready to do it. So getting back over to this camera for a second, I mean,
yeah, this is important.
Pete Peterson showed me that validation. I said, wow, this is real. I mean, these beings do exist.
Yeah, when a fake doctor with a fake education and a fake work history and a bunch of fake claims about his background showed me this, I said, wow, this is real, because a fraud showed me this. It's ridiculous. And this man should be ashamed of himself for citing a dead fake whistleblower.
They want to communicate with us somehow.
The grift never ends.
To do so, we just have to be like a radio, and we have to listen to them, tune them in. The remote viewing protocols were really specific about the need to screen the conscious mind.
That they never play. You ever notice that?
To get away from allowing that interference to be the dominant force.
Well, in truth, so do I. I just stopped using them so much.
So what do I mean by that? It's important to breathe very deeply. It's important to meditate, and it's important to tune out the normal ego, if you will, as most people
you're
call
right,
it.
Purple.
And I don't think the ego is a bad thing. In the Law of One series, they call it the personality self, and they say that you want to have.
Yeah, let's take a moment to also recognize that during this broadcast, David Wilcock collected thousands and thousands of dollars worth of super chats, and he never once thanked anyone. He didn't thank anybody for thousands of dollars worth of super chats. And I keep saying it, we pay the truth tax here, because you can go on a live stream publicly and lie to people. He's literally using dead whistleblowers as sources, lying to people that dead guy was a doctor, and people are sending him thousands and thousands of dollars in super chats, and he doesn't even have the courtesy to thank anyone for those super chats.
A very well-developed personality self, so that you don't require
I
angelic
don't get it
guidance to
myself.
know what's best to do. They want you to become developed to a point where you have the knowledge as to what is the best move, because you've got the choices. When people would get angelic readings from me, and this is later on after I developed the remote viewing, as we're about to discuss, when Archangel Michael started coming through, I did client readings from 1998 to 2005. And it was a total of about 500. And I don't think I have all of them on tape because I did a whole bunch of them in Japan. I did a whole month-long tour of Japan in 2002. I had a book out there called Tenkan no Jidai, which means the paradigm shift. Anyway, other than that, let's go back to remote viewing, because light as a feather, stiff as a board is one of the things they tell you. They say that you want to be, you want to have your body feel like there is a float.
Now he's going to give us a remote viewing lesson.
Floatiness going on, that there's this kind of just that you feel very buoyant and light, but at the same time, it would be hard to open your eyes or it would be hard to move your fingers. And so this light as a feather, stiff as a board is a very basic component of doing the meditative protocol properly. The idea here
It's
is
not a
that
guitar.
in the remote viewing research, they actually found that when you got into this state, there was a polarity
I agree,
shift
Jam,
between
and thanks for being
the
a member.
electrical polarity on your fingers and toes. So I guess it would go from positive to negative or something. That was it's in the third book I wrote.
Yeah, those
the fourth
plugs
book I
aren't
wrote,
doing too
Awakening the
good.
Dream. So there's electrical voltage shifts, and it turns out, if I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, that the reason why remote viewing works is that in the center of your brain, you have something called the pineal gland. And this is actually wired into the visual cortex. It has wires that are very similar to the ones that come off the back of your eye.
Pineal gland does not
And
have
what's even weirder
wires.
than that is that this gland is essentially a hollow area. And inside the hollow area, you have retinal cells on the inside, like they're looking at something inside the water. So there's water floating inside this hollow area, which is about the size of a pea. And it has retinal cells looking at the water.
Yeah, apparently.
Then the water, here's the trick, it has DMT crystals in it.
Oh, here we go with
As
the
I've
DMT crystals again and the pineal gland.
Said many times before, DMT, if you actually dry it out and then you start hitting the crystals with a hammer, you'll get these huge bursts of different colors of light. You might get a big flash.
Why doesn't he ever display this? He just says these things. I don't know that that's accurate or not. I've never tried to hit DMT crystals with hammers.
Flash of yellow light, a big flash of red light, a big flash of green light, a big flash of blue light. Each time you hit it, you're going to get a different color. And those crystals are inside your brain. Now, why do they create big flashes of light when you hit them with a hammer? Because certain crystals, when you compress them, they release photons, which is light. And in this case, DMT releases all the full colors of the rainbow spectrum.
We're going to have to fact check this one.
Under compression at different frequencies. It appears that some sort of higher force designed us so that our pineal gland has this electromagnetic shielding that fires up. This was one of the things that Pete Peterson told me.
Okay, so his fake whistleblower told him all this stuff. His fake government whistleblower, you know, the fake doctor who's dead now and no one can verify if he actually ever said those things. That's his source for all of this garbage. Great.
His research, there is a moment at which the outside of the pineal gland has this cascading, spinning electromagnetic field that develops, creating what you would call a Faraday shield, in which if you have a radio receiver inside, you're not going to be able to receive a radio station's signal. It shields off all the radio frequencies.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
As you shield off these radio frequencies, you also shield off some of the spin of gravity.
I agree, Stormcrow.
And when you
I got a 6-year-old that could tell better stories than
causes
this.
the body to go into a dream state. So the process of falling asleep involves as you become mind awake, body asleep, as you close your eyes, let me just make sure, are we still on track? Okay, so yeah, we got a lot of, just want to make sure that you can hear
According
me.
to him, I
everybody's good,
guess,
that nobody's
Madam Two
upset.
Swords.
Okay, so the remote viewing protocol is what comes out of getting into a state where your body feels
Well, there we go.
and you feel very light.
We have confirmation that David Wilcock is full of it. Ghost 8 says, I smoked a ton of DMT, broke it all up with titanium tools, never saw a spark of color. Well, there you go. So his fake whistleblower gave him fake information, which he then mindlessly repeats.
Floaty, and then your consciousness drifts away. And you get these very sudden little flashes of things that you see, and they only last a split second. But it appears that what's actually happening, as I've discussed in other videos, is that you do have an astral body that can float around anywhere it wants. And it does appear to have a silver cord. Many, if not most, out-of-body near-death experiencers say they see a silver cord.
Yeah, a lot of people say a lot of similar things. It doesn't make it true. This is false equivalency.
Connecting their spiritual body to their physical body. That appears to be a physics thing, like a wormhole, where the photons of what you see with your soul as you're floating around in your soul.
I feel like I'm getting
The
dumber
photons
listening
of
to
what
him.
you see go through this silver cord, go into the pineal gland, vibrate the DMT crystals inside the pineal gland when the electromagnetic shield is activated, thus causing them to release full color video. There's a full color nanotechnology video feed inside your pineal gland.
There is no evidence of this whatsoever, no scientific proof of this whatsoever. This is new age gobbledygook nonsense. There's neurotransmitted videos in your pineal gland. Prove it. Prove it. He won't. He can't. This is just nonsense.
And it's there and it works.
If it works,
And
then show it.
science of remote
Show us. Show us. You can't.
viewing essentially proves that it's there. So when we have something like this, it's fascinating to note what we can do with it. People have been able to see distant sites where military facilities were located, get accurate drawings.
Yeah, just because he read it on the internet doesn't make it true. But he believes because he read it on the internet, it must be true. People have made all kinds of claims about remote viewing. Show me the science. Show me the data. Most people can't because it is not a science. Some would say it's an art form, but it's not a science. He claims it is. Doesn't make it so.
The greatest remote viewer is Joe McMoneagle. And on Japanese television, he reunited a family with their estranged children, and they actually had the video crew come to the door, and he remote viewed where they were so accurately.
It might
actually
be.
worked.
Yes, Randy.
These people hadn't seen each other in, I don't know, it was something like over 10 years. They'd been lost. So the potentials of this were phenomenal, and Art Bell had many of these type of stories on his show, and I wanted to be engaged in it. I wanted to
I
have
agree,
fun with it
Joe
myself.
Esposito. You're right. 100%.
And when I learned about the pineal gland and I started to understand the science of the pineal gland, I realized, yeah, we have this two-way video feed.
Yep,
that
they're going to take a
comes from our
permanent
soul
IQ
through the
level
silver
drop
cord,
from listening to this
so
clown.
that if you can tune into it, there is visual and there is audio. You can hear things.
I'm getting
and you
dumber
can
by
see
the
things.
minute
And
here.
so there's clairvoyance,
I think we
which
all
is
are.
clear seeing, and clairaudience, which is clear hearing or clear audio. So I was definitely experiencing clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience in the course of doing meditation.
That's the sad part. People are giving him money
as I've said before,
while he's regurgitating new age
Who
nonsense.
was on Richard C. Hoagland's forum named Joe Mason was doing research into what he called the dream voice. Now, the dream voice was his name for fragments of speech that he could hear around him in a 360-degree halo when he first woke up in the morning. Now, what were those things saying?
Hey, Plan
The
D is
idea
here.
is
Welcome,
that they
Plan
don't
D.
usually make any sense. You don't understand what they're saying. You just pick out a few and you try to get them as precisely as you can. And again, the remote viewing protocols, the main issue is if you understand
I got thrown out.
So if you get too
No, we didn't miss much. More New Age nonsense.
excited by something, you're going to screw it up. And you also shouldn't have any emotions going in. You shouldn't be sad. You shouldn't be angry. They stressed the need to take care of the physical body. You have to have no need to go pee, no need to go to the bathroom. You're not hungry. You're not overly tired, or else you might fall asleep. And I use
Exactly, Joe
remote viewing
Esposito.
protocols like this. My mouth is getting really dry. I'm not used to talking this much. I really don't talk very much. I've been meditating.
He doesn't talk very much. Jesus.
So the remote viewing gets to this place where you turn on that electromagnetic signal
Clary.
inside your pineal gland. They measure this by a voltage change between your hands and feet. And now you're starting to get flashes in your mind's eye where
Could be.
you get little visual images. And the most difficult part of the process
Maybe I threw myself out.
is
Yeah.
it
Maybe I
happens so
just
suddenly and then
can't
it's
take
gone
much
so
more of
quick.
this clown.
You might get a whole complex visual image that just disappears so
All right.
fast. It's
So
like,
the whole point of his stream is supposed to be that he's in communication with angelic beings. And we're at 30 minutes and he hasn't given us any information from the angelic beings. If you were in communication with the angelic beings, would you talk New Age gobbledygook nonsense for a half hour first?
well, I don't know. I mean, I guess I saw something, but what did I see? I don't know. So it's important to be able to really trust the process and not be feeling like you
It
have
would be
anything
easy to prove
add
it.
at all. There's
Should be.
nothing you can add.
If it
There's nothing you
cannot
should
stand
be
up to
adding.
scientific scrutiny, then it's not valid. And you know, that's the problem. These people just throw out stuff they read on the internet as if it's factually correct.
Should only be this raw feed of intel. So Joe Mason took the remote viewing protocols I'd already been studying and trying to figure out, okay, how can I use this? And then he consolidated it into a dream voice practice. And the very next morning after he and I had this conversation, the day was November 10th, 1996. And I know this well because I've written so many books about it. That's when, after I'd already gone out to Colorado and failed, and graduate school turned me down, and I moved back to New York State, and I moved back to my college town, and now I'm taking jobs for $6, helping people who are profoundly disabled.
Yeah, and by the way, somebody with a bachelor's degree in psychology working in that capacity would not make $6. So I call bullshit on that claim. If you've got a 4-year college degree in psychology, you could get a job as an aide at a home for developmentally disabled for at least $20, $25 an hour, not $6. This pity party, again, I think it's all designed so that people keep sending him more money. He is desperately in need of money, and the desperation's coming out soon, as I recall.
And it was at this time that I received this contact, this angelic contact, while I was doing these jobs and taking care of the most humble.
Mirth
broken people
Whitehouse
on earth.
has had enough of this
And
already.
that's when it
So
happened.
have I.
I had poverty. I mean, $5.77 an hour. And so this was, I was struggling, and I could only get these readings transcribed in between while I was doing the job.
Storm Crow, I agree, but I can't
Therefore, I
share
was
that
working
one.
constantly. If I wasn't at work when I was on the job, I was pretty much always transcribing when I got home. So let's talk about what happened. The morning after I had this conversation with Joe Mason,
Yeah, he's helping people out of their money.
I woke up
Yes.
and I started hearing what sounded like his voice talking in the background. The night before, I'd been trying to write down everything he said. Looking at the time here, I got still looking good.
And this is what happens when you wing it with no slides. Yes, Davina TK,
So,
thanks for being a
I
member.
was hearing his voice again, and because last night I'd been trying to write down all
dropping
these cool
discount
things he was
codes.
telling me about archetypes.
And thanks for being a
metaphors
member,
and crop
Charles
circles,
Rowland.
I just started to write down what he said again. I'd
Good
listen
point,
to a
Patty.
little of it, put my head on the pillow. I'd hear like a sentence fragment. The weirder it was, the better. He already taught me that. So, okay, just if it sounds crazy, that's awesome. You want stuff that
It's
sounds
getting bigger
really
as we go.
off the wall. If it just introduces itself in a professorial tone, it's probably not real. So that's what it started with, is like this weird dream voice stuff where on the very first morning,
Exactly.
I could hear Joe's voice,
Yeah.
and I'd grab a
McDonald's
little
paid
bit,
more
I'd
than
write it
that,
down in
Chris,
longhand,
in
and I'd go back in, get a
1998.
little more, write it down. lather, rinse, and repeat, like it says on the shampoo bottle. Which, does anybody really do that? Do you ever actually repeat? I don't. I don't know
Yes,
if
I
anybody
agree,
does.
Red Brick. He's stretching time to scoop up donations
Once I
before
did
the
that
anticlimactic
practice,
letdown.
and then I woke up into a
Yep.
full state of consciousness, there was all kinds of very strange things in there, including something about Mother Teresa. One of our women, Teresa, a sibling inoperative, the Christian, psychically. And then 5 days after this, or something like that, it's 5 to 7, I forget the exact number, but it was within a week or around a week, Mother Teresa has a heart attack. And it said one of our women, now who is we, our women?
Here's where he tries to fit his nonsensical ramblings that he claimed are channeled from angels to real world events, and he fails miserably at this. Okay, they mentioned one of our women, and he just connects the dots to real world events. They didn't, listen, I'm no biblical scholar, but I don't think that angels would talk in, Nostradamus like codes that has to be translated. They would just say Mother Teresa will have a heart attack in 5 days. That's not what we get here. We get nonsensical ramblings that he somehow tries to fit his agenda here. It's like fitting a square peg through a round hole. Doesn't
Saint
work.
Teresa, right? So Saint, okay, one of our women. And at this point, I didn't know that everybody who gets the voice feed usually gets an angelic, unless you're going to.
I don't know that they gave her a heart attack, but she had
but
one.
Otherwise, you're going to get some kind of, usually, if a lot of people end up
disassociation, yes,
Christian type angels. This is in the remote viewing book by Dr. Courtney Brown. There's some very fascinating backstory where he says that they were
Courtney Brown, who is the person who is largely responsible, or some say is responsible, for Heaven's Gate killing themselves over that, UFO. That's Courtney Brown that he's citing, a man who contributed to the tragic suicide death of all of those Heaven's Gate cult members.
Were well aware of these angelic beings. They were in white robes, and this is described in his book from 1996. And they were called way showers.
I agree. Yeah, he tries to just jam everything in here. Remote viewing, pineal gland,
for these beings, probably
astral projection, angels,
that goes back
aliens.
To mid-90s ufology would be tall whites. They are very commonly reported in a number of reports.
And the tall whites came from Charles Hall, a stolen valor fraud that was never in the military, but claimed he talked to tall white aliens while he was in the military, but he was never in the military. And David is citing that here. Again, fake whistleblower sources.
Having these white robes, and that includes the Betty, Andreas, and Luca contactee material, which goes back to the late 70s, early 80s. The Andreasen Affair, I think, is the name of the first book, and that's when white-robed beings started to appear. In some
It's a David pot. Put it all in.
Drawn.
Yes.
So they've been around for a long time. This is nothing new. And
okay,
even
so widen that. Yeah.
There were a number of UFO contactees who had telepathic contact in the 1950s with what appeared to be angelic beings.
Notice he never says allegedly. He just states things as fact because he read it on the internet.
Beings that, again, yet sort of ecumenical. They get a little bit overly religious sounding sometimes. And so that was one of the weird things that I found actually somewhat disquieting about this contact, was that it was pretty staunchly Christian, and I really wasn't.
I have joked that he just has flashcards, and the flashcards, Ganja, have things on them. Like, he has flashcards that say, like, astral projection, tall white aliens, reptilians, draconians, Enki and Enkel from the Mesopotamia, and, Zechariah Sitchin. He just has cards with all kinds of new age nonsense on them, and he just puts the cards out before a stream and like, okay, that's what I'm going to talk about. Oh, and pineal gland is on there, astral projection is on there, channeling angelic beings is on there, and he just picks random cards of nonsense to talk about. That's what it sounds like to me, and I have suffered through many of these nonsensical rambling streams of his.
Now, this same thing happened to the woman who did Course in Miracles, Helen, I forget her name, but you can look it up. She had the same issue where
he just reads stuff
she-
off the net while he's rambling.
The
Yes.
Course in Miracles contact has a very Christian tone, and she didn't really have
Yeah,
that
his hair looks
predilection in
pea
her own
soaked.
life, but
Yes.
yet, she's not going to get in the way of the contact. So in my case, right away, I'm getting all these weird encrypted phrases that predict the future, and it becomes such a prevalent thing, the prediction of the future, that I was in a constant state of awe about this stuff. So
If you say so,
I really
think
did
it's just
have
bullshit.
a very big awakening that came out of all this. I was aware that now I have proof that there's some type of higher intelligence in the universe, that this intelligence is the same source that was giving me dreams all these years. I was listening to my dreams, writing them down for 4 years before this contact actually started.
Yeah, who other than a narcissistic sociopath writes down 4 years worth of his dreams as if he's so important that his nonsensical dreams that he have are somehow so important?
So there was a lot of shame around it too. It's not exactly socially acceptable per se to have angelic
Exactly.
contact.
He has an agenda,
and
and
have
his
these
agenda
beings
is
appear
money.
and talk to you in such a direct way. And what do I mean by direct? I mean, they really did not pull any punches about telling me where I had growth issues. Right from the beginning, I was told I had serious problems with anxiety.
Why wouldn't they tell you have serious problems with being a narcissistic scumball sociopath who preys on vulnerable people who want something to believe in? If he was really in contact with angels, wouldn't the first thing that they do is tell him to stop scamming people with fake information, with fake whistleblowers, with fake government insiders? Wouldn't the first thing an angel would do to a person like him is to show him the error of his ways and how it was morally and ethically and probably legally wrong for him to collect millions of dollars from vulnerable people selling garbage? I would think so.
That I shouldn't be worried, that the fear that I had was so much worse than what was really going on, and that I had this sort of patterned behavior. They were really not happy about the fact that I like to drive fast. So they wanted me to slow down in the car, and I ended up not doing that. And you can read in the book Awakening the Dream, my fourth published book,
Skin is pea stain,
where I
not
had a
tan.
series of dreams predicting that I was going to have this car crash. So the dreams were letting me know that I was going to
Yep,
get nailed with
500,000
karma.
subscribers for this garbage.
And I became very aware that something was going on. And then when this Archangel Michael contact started beginning on November 10th, 1996, again, I was warned about my fast driving. Again, I refused to listen. And again, I had a car crash that they predicted in advance a year after the previous winter, where they did it just with dreams. This
All
time
right,
they did
great.
it in spoken word, and they used a very, very remarkable prophecy.
I
Michael
agree.
said, "My gift to the world will be a 3.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Expect it on Friday."
And by the way, there's no proof to anything that he's saying here. He's just saying it. We don't know that he wrote this stuff down. It's not on any of his websites, but he keeps claiming that the angels are speaking to him and predicting the future. They predicted he got a speeding ticket. Great.
90
Because angels have nothing better to do than to predict speeding tickets of D-celebrity History Channel former stars.
minutes until 10
right?
o'clock. That's what it said. On Friday at 8:30 a.m., which is 90 minutes until 10 o'clock, a police officer ended up writing me a ticket on a 3.5 by 11 sheet of paper because I'd collided with the car in front of me.
I agree, Red Brick.
Michael set
Self-credentializing
it
with
up.
broad meanderings
Michael
to
knew
prove his reputation
exactly what
worthy.
he was doing. He set up my car crash. He predicted it in advance. He said, "My gift to the world will be a 3.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Expect it on Friday, 90 minutes until 10 o'clock. 3.5 by 11.
Yeah,
Not-
and by the way, can he show us proof that he wrote this before he got the ticket? Of course not. We're just supposed to trust this fraud, fake psychic, The angels predicted the future. They predicted my speeding ticket. Why would an angel say my gift to the world will be a speeding ticket for David Wilcock? It's ridiculous.
90 minutes, 11, 9/11. If you go back to Awakening in the Dream, it turns out that this prophecy also reflects on 9/11 in several different ways. And you got to look at the surrounding material. We're not going to do that now.
Yeah.
But the point is that 9/11 was being predicted in these readings from 1996 from the beginning, and I found those trails of evidence.
No,
and even on
I
the
don't,
day of
Charles
September
Rowland,
11th,
but thanks for being a member.
2001, on that day, before it hit midnight, I had already posted and uploaded my first of a series of articles called Attack on America.
I agree.
Where I went into
He probably needs
detail
mental
of prophecies
help.
that I had already uploaded on the website that predicted 9/11.
And by the way, where are those predictions on your website, David Wilcock? Because I looked for them. He does not. He is lying. There is no prophetic predictions from the Archangel Michael on his previous website that predicted 9/11. This right here is another form of consumer fraud because he's trying to sell you a book claiming that he's been in contact with angels that predict the future accurately, and he can't prove any of that. He cannot prove any of this. This is a form of consumer fraud.
They were already on the website. There was tons of them.
Where?
And
Where?
over the course of like the next
I
couple of
looked.
days, I chunked out like, I forget, 3 or 4 of these articles. But it turns out that 9/11 was not the grand
Yeah,
finale
you have to
at
buy the
all.
book to get the predictions.
They
Sure.
kept on steering me through events in my personal life. And this goes from 1996 on into 97. And as we head into 97, I eventually get out of the developmentally disabled arena. And the source guided me to work at a beautiful resort hotel called Mohonk Mountain House.
Attack on
90 miles
America and
north of New
9/11
York City,
predicted in 2023.
off exit 18
Yeah.
on the New York State Thruway.
He's using the trick that a lot of fake psychics use, which is to just claim that you predicted things after they've already occurred. But like most fake psychics, he doesn't have a website that was published or a blog that was published that we could look at to see that the things that he predicted were written, copyrighted, or put somewhere before the actual events he claims he predicted. It is an age-old psychic scam that he's trying to pull here with no evidence, no proof. Again, Mr. False Prophet, who has made 100 false predictions that never came true, is now claiming to be in contact with angels. I beg to differ.
So I got into reservations and I was selling people on this beautiful property. And I worked a season there and then left in
2012
October
nonsense.
and moved directly
None of that happened.
to Virginia Beach, Virginia. The reason I did that, as
Pathetic
many of you already
predictions,
know,
yes.
is because
Conspiracy, yes.
I started to notice that there was a very compelling connection between what was happening to me and what had happened.
You're a better
to
psychic
Edgar
than
Cayce.
David Wilcock.
And Edgar Cayce is a historical figure who was born in 1877, died in 1945, and he did these psychic readings.
Now we're getting back to the I'm Edgar reincarnated grift. Haven't you made enough money from that scam? And by the way, before we get into this, it's important to note that Edgar Cayce knew that many false prophets would come forward after him and claim to be him reincarnated. So he devised a test with his own family, and they still have it today. The Edgar Cayce Foundation offered to test David Wilcock. He refused. And by the way, his son and the Edgar Cayce's son and the, at the time, executive director of the Edgar Cayce Foundation met with him once and determined that he was not Edgar Cayce reincarnated. And in fact, Edgar Cayce's family asked him to stop saying that, and especially stop trying to profit from the memory of their father. Did he do that? No. He did not respect the wishes of this dead man's family, and instead went on to publish books, take paid speaking engagements, all the while claiming to be Edgar Cayce reincarnated. But he refused to take the Edgar Cayce Foundation's test for people making those claims, which means those are false claims.
Where he would go into a state of trance and then document people's
All
medical
right,
problems.
I'm rich,
He
bitch.
would diagnose the problem, and it would speak as a we. There was a source that's introduced itself as a we, and in certain instances, in the Edgar Casey contact, it didn't happen too often.
Yeah, he's always selling
Something
something.
very profoundly disturbing would happen.
That's the
It wasn't
grift.
really disturbing, maybe, but it could be considered that way. And this was Archangel Michael. So in my new book, The Michael Prophecies, which is available at thedisclosure.com.
Here comes the pitch. By the way, Matthews, we covered him channeling the Egyptian god Ra. It's important to note that besides talking to angels, David Wilcock also claimed to have been in contact with the Egyptian god Ra and channeled a great many things from the Egyptian god Ra. By the way, all of that was New Age gobbledygook nonsense, and none of the things that he said really matter. So before the Archangel Michael, he's channeling Egyptian gods Ra. And how does that work? Because if you believe in the Christian perspective, then the Egyptian gods are false gods. He's channeling false gods before he's channeling archangels. None of this makes any sense from a biblical perspective or otherwise. It's New Age grift. That's what it is. The scam for a while was I was Edgar Casey reincarnated. That scam ran its course, and he sucked all the money he could out of the New Age community for that. Next thing we know, he's channeling the Egyptian god Ra, sucks all the money out of the New Age community he can for that, and he's on to the next scam, and the next scam, and the next scam. This is just the latest in a long list of for-profit scams from a false prophet fake psychic.
I have now 5 books where I've taken this period of time from 1996 to 1999, and I've taken almost everything that came through me telepathically through this process, and I'm publishing it now, and I've got 2 of them out. The next one is about to.
Yeah, and if these prophetic predictions were so important and they came between 1996 and 1999, why is he only publishing them now? And by the way, I've seen the first book. He connects all these dots, claiming that he wrote things in 1996 that he can't prove he wrote in 1996. And even still, they are cryptic and ridiculous. It's not like in 1996 he wrote, the Archangel Michael told me that in 2023 this would happen. And then it happens. It's not like that. It's nowhere near direct. It's a bunch of nonsense. And he claims that he wrote these books in the past 18 months, but here he claims he wrote the books between 1996 and 1999. So which is it? When did you write the books? Does that mean you've been sitting on your ass for the past year and a half, having pity parties, claiming that you're working so hard, but the books were mostly already written between 1996 and 1999, and now you need money, so you're just recycling your old garbage?
Come out hopefully within a few days. I wanted to make sure I was ready to do this video and do it well. But this is what's getting ready to happen, is I'm ready to come out with book 2, volume 2, which will be the 3rd volume altogether. And then the volumes 4 and 5 are actually very close to being finished. So I only expect to take another, hopefully no more than a few weeks to do this.
So he needs 5 books of nonsense to sell this Archangel Michael scam? 5 books? Really? You've got enough prophetic predictions? 5 books. What's your best predictions, David? He can't lay them out here. That's how you know this is just another New Age scam in a long line and list of New Age scams, right? There was the free energy and the hover cars was the last scams. Before that, it was Daniel Brinkley's dying, and this is his last final testament and contribution to humanity. Daniel Brinkley never died. That was the scam. Before that, it was another, portal to ascension scam. Nobody ascended. Nobody got superpowers. Before that, it was the rainbow light body scam, and on and on and on and on we go.
All right. So what is it that happened?
The big Mike
As I
prophecies.
chunked out these readings,
He's offering coupons for his bullshit.
and I'm reading
Discount
also, I'm learning
bullshit.
about,
It's awesome.
Edgar Casey. I go to Virginia Beach, and I end up living with someone who had been friends with Edgar Casey's secretary, Gladys Davis Turner, as she was later known.
You're
originally just Gladys Davis.
right, the Watcher.
So he was best friends with her. He sought her
He
out.
got
He came all the way out
Taco
to
Bell
Virginia
coupons
Beach.
from the
He was a
Egyptian
huge
god
Edgar
Ra.
Casey fan, the world's biggest Edgar Casey fan. He became friends with her secretary. He got all the inside stories, and I ended up living with him for over half a year. And this is when I first found out that Edgar Casey had levitated in some of these readings.
Oh, he
but
definitely
even
needs
more
money.
bizarre than that was that as his voice was speaking, it was like somebody had the bass speakers on from some kind of kickbox in a car stereo, way too loud. What do I mean by
Now, here is where there is always some bit of truth spewed in with the lies. I have heard accounts of Edgar Casey speaking in a super loud, almost projected voice while under trance.
way too loud? I mean that as the voice is speaking, everything in the whole house is reverberating from the sounds of the voice.
Yeah, they told him to
Walls,
stop.
the floors,
He refused.
your body. The vibration is so intense that people would feel like they were going to get knocked off of their chair. As the voice keeps speaking, your body would start to inch off the chair. You have to get yourself back on the chair. They were hearing the knives
is very
and
common,
forks
actually.
rattling inside the silverware container in the kitchen cupboards. They were hearing windows opening and closing. They were hearing
market
doors slamming
nonsense.
shut and opening again. And you got this body levitating, I don't know how far off the table. There didn't appear to be any visual phenomena other than
Oh,
the
that's
body levitating. I
bizarre.
don't think there was any light.
His mom
per
was
se
a
that
new
was
age
visible to the naked eye, at least.
wackadoo yoga teacher.
But this was incredible. To go to Virginia Beach, to do this pilgrimage, if you will. I've driven 20 hours
sound like
on
that.
the I-95. It is an incredibly horrible drive if you take the time.
That's
and
funny.
Try to go too fast. You got to stop a few times.
Hey, Mom, play some new age
And
music.
then I get there to Virginia Beach, and I find out that Edgar Casey has had this whole issue with
It is
Archangel
Tibetan.
Michael, because
Yeah.
that's the name of the being that would come through when he was levitating off the table, and his voice would shake the walls. This entity wouldn't always begin, but it was a very forceful alpha male kind of thing. And in fact, in the Law of One series, whenever they do mention Michael, they say Michael represents the divine masculine. So it's sort of like the purest spiritual masculine energy distilled into its form. That's what Archangel Michael is. And in the Bible,
No, that is one person's interpretation. That is not the biblical interpretation of who Michael is, or the scholarly interpretation of who Michael is. That's the New Age wackadoo interpretation of who Michael, the archangel, is.
Archangel Michael is described as the highest angel of God.
Well, that's true.
It's probably good that I don't have a salivary reflex anymore when I'm talking, because that meant I was talking too much. Okay, so when this contact came through, it was a very intense experience for everyone in the room. They would cry. Some people would start spasming and go into like a religious ecstasy situation, because it just keeps on happening. The voice keeps on speaking and the whole freaking house is shaking, and you just have a totally paranormal freak out. That's what would happen to people. Or they just freaking cry their eyes out and they just be sobbing and wailing. And it was a very
Partying with
loud,
blowing
very
escorts.
forceful voice. And it turns out that some of the things that
Snake
it
oil.
said,
Absolutely.
even from like the very first time that it appeared in 1928, are highly prophetic of what's going on now in today's world. There's some pretty shocking Edgar Casey / Archangel Michael stuff.
And so he's just copying from Edgar Casey then.
So I didn't even know that Edgar Casey had gotten Archangel Michael until I went to Virginia Beach in October 97, a full year after this contact started. But one of the reasons why I went to Virginia Beach is that the guy who I was working with in New York State, who had the ARE, Association for Research and Enlightenment charter up there.
Yeah, who was another New Age grifter that he would write a book with.
He was an expert. He'd had 40 years of experience, expert hypnotherapist. He put me under hypnosis, and really strange stuff started to happen.
Good point.
I started to speak as, it didn't identify as Archangel Michael yet. It called itself Grandfather. And then there was a female that called itself Lucia.
Why would the Archangel Michael lie and call himself grandfather if he was indeed the Archangel? Angels don't lie. Angels do not deceive. This right here, more than anything else that he has said, is proof that he is not now, nor has he ever been in communication with the Archangel Michael. The Archangel Michael would not deceive someone, would not lie to someone. They're incapable of lying. They're incapable of deception. Well, not that they're incapable of it, but it is against their nature to be deceptive. Do you know who is deceptive? Demonic entities. That's perfectly in line with known biblical truths about demonic entities. They deceive. They pretend that they are other entities. They pretend that they are deceased loved ones or angels or old gods. Demonic entities deceive. Angelic entities do not deceive. He just admitted that the entity he later claims is the Archangel Michael first comes through claiming to be grandfather. An angel would not deceive. An angel would not lie. Therefore, all of this, all of his talking points and claims of speaking with angels completely falls apart right here and now.
Or Lucinda. And this apparently was Saint Lucia, which I never even looked up until I just wrote this book and then found out, oh yeah, this is this saint from the Scandinavian countries. The idea was that these beings apparently had given me their DNA. They say in this conversation they have with Skip Weatherford, his name was, that I have been involved in what they called their extraterrestrial space program. And so they said that I was involved in an extraterrestrial space program in the year 1997. They didn't say secret space program, but they said extraterrestrial space program. Then they said that I had been through sexual assault in this program.
Oh, that's great.
And I somehow just walled that stuff off.
Talk about a pity
didn't pay
party.
attention to it, didn't go back and look
Send
at
me
it.
money,
I have
I'm
no
a victim.
memory
And here's another
anything
thing.
like this. I mean, I'd
To claim to be a victim of childhood sexual assault while you're collecting money is just slimy. It's just a slimy, disgusting thing to do, right? And who does he claim was sexually assaulting him? Reptilian aliens. That's offensive to every victim of sexual assault. Look, he's smiling while he's talking about being sexually assaulted, and the angels are telling him about his sexual assault. None of this makes any sense because this man is not a prophet. He's not in communication with archangels. He's in communication with his own imagination, most likely. If not, he's in communication with demonic entities.
had, a lot of strange stuff in my childhood I've talked about before. Lots and lots of what appeared to be UFO visitations, dreams that don't really seem like dreams. It's only when I went back and read this stuff now that everything started to make sense of what they were talking about and what it means for the implications of humanity. But getting back to when I was under hypnosis with Skip, you can read that session in book 1, I believe.
Oh, great. So where's he getting his information from that he's talking to angels? Through hypnotic regression? Real science there. No, this is garbage.
Of the Michael prophecies. Again, it's available on thedisclosure.com. And we do have an insider code that you can apply if you
here's the pitch
show to get $22 off.
$22 off his shitty
all
book.
Capital letters. So
Awesome.
if you type in the word Ascension, and this is only going to work until I finish the books. Until I finish, I think we're only going to do it until I finish the next volume. So it'll only be a few days, but for the next few days, if you type in the word Ascension in all capital letters.
By the way, he is famous for his marketing campaigns in which he straight lies. You're not allowed to lie and say that there's a limited time offer if it's not a limited time offer. He has done that in the past over and over and over again, having a counter that resets, claiming that they're only taking so many more people for his courses. And then when that timer goes to 0, it just resets again for another 2 days or something. That is completely and totally illegal. And so is claiming something is a limited time offer when it is indeed not. I suspect he's up to his old marketing tricks here, but who
$2
knows?
off at thedisclosure.com.
Oh, you get $22 off bullshit. Discount bullshit. It's
Here
so
I am
nice.
working for $5.77 an hour. Then I go down to Virginia Beach after Skip Weatherford has told me that my face looks exactly like Edgar Casey. Now, bear in mind that when he had me under and Archangel Michael and Saint Lucia come out, he was getting his mind read, and they were answering his questions before he could even ask them out loud.
I would just ask the question, and this is just a general question, but why would angels and saints be talking to a new age grifter who has been scamming people for his entire life? Right? Don't you think that angels and saints may have a better vessel to choose if they had some messages for humanity than some washed up, scammy star of ancient aliens, which, by the way, is completely and totally against the Christian faith? If you believe in ancient aliens, to be honest, I mean, I'd have to really consult with a priest friend of mine again, but I truly believe I'm correct in the statement that if you 100% believe in ancient aliens theory, then that's a sin, because you are denying the Christian God, the Hebrew God of the Bible, and claiming that the one true God did not create the heavens and the earth, but aliens did it. So it doesn't make any sense. One of these things is not like the other. There's huge plot holes here that he doesn't even understand, don't make sense. If you were a Christian angel or Christian saint, why would you go to somebody who has spent years of his life turning people away from God with false theories about the creation of man and earth? It doesn't make any religious sense. From a religious perspective, a scriptural perspective, a biblical perspective, everything that David Wilcock is putting forth makes no logical sense whatsoever. You can't have both. You can't be both an ancient aliens theorist and be a person that is filled with the grace of God enough to communicate with angels. Does that make sense? You can't. In a state of non-grace, you cannot, according to most biblical scholars and religious experts, you have to be in a state of total grace to communicate with angelic beings or with God. None of this makes any sense because this is nonsense. It is absolute new age scammy nonsense. He's not in communication with angels. He couldn't be.
And another really strange thing that happened is I couldn't keep my eyes closed. So I had my eyes open and my pupils, of course, my eyes are normally blue. My pupils were dilated, basically black, like you would get if you took a psychedelic drug. But I wasn't on any drugs at all. So that was all very interesting. And I go to Virginia Beach, and then everybody in Virginia Beach who is associated with the Edgar Casey work starts to recognize that I look like Edgar Casey. Very,
Bullshit.
very much. In fact,
this is false. This is completely and totally false. The executive director of the Edgar Casey Foundation asked you to take a test. You refused to do it. We have that on the record statement from them. Also, Edgar Casey's family did not believe that he was the reincarnation of Edgar Casey and asked him to stop profiting from the memory of their deceased relative. He refused and continued to make those claims against the wishes of the Edgar Casey Foundation, against the wishes of the surviving relatives of Edgar Casey. It would be like you or I claiming to be the reincarnation of somebody, and then that person's family says, "We don't believe that you are his reincarnation. Can you please stop saying that? And most importantly, can you stop profiting from our father?" And you saying, "Fuck you, I'm going to keep profiting from your dead relative," and saying these completely untrue things that you disagree with. When the man's family says he's not Edgar Casey reincarnated, What right does he have to continue to make those claims and to take money from people? He took money from book sales. He took money from conference appearances the entire time, claiming that he's Edgar Casey reincarnated. When the Edgar Casey Foundation and his family said, "No, you are not, sir," and he kept doing it. You know who does that? A scammer does that. A person who has no regard for the memory that some people have of their dead relative. He has no respect for the dead. Because what does he do? He scams off the memory of a dead man for years. That proves what kind of a man this clown is.
Nawab Indian Restaurant, I met the director of the Edgar Casey Association's magazine, Venture Inward. I believe his name's Bob Smith.
No, he's not.
And when he walked into the restaurant, I was actually sitting.
Oh, and here's this big long story about how he bears some superficial resemblance. Listen, reincarnation may be real, but there's no proof or evidence that if you're reincarnated, you will look facially like the last person you incarnated as. That's garbage. He can claim whatever he's going to claim. And he did meet with several people from the Edgar Casey Foundation, including, I believe, one of Edgar Casey's sons, all of which said, "We don't believe that you're Edgar Casey reincarnated. Either take our tests and prove it or stop saying these things." He refused and continued to profit from that scam, just one of his many scams in a long line of new age fake psychic guru scams this man has run throughout his lifetime.
In a chair, and I looked over at him like this. Let's see if I can get it right. It was about like that. That's the way he saw me. And he had just been editing a picture for the magazine where Edgar Casey had been in this exact position. And he said that he nearly fell over backwards because the face was identical.
Show us a quote from that person. He can't. This is a bluff. This never happened. He did meet with people from the Edgar Casey Foundation, and essentially they said, either take our test or stop lying to people and profiting from the dead prophet they believe to be a dead prophet, Edgar Casey.
And it is.
He refused.
It's a shocking facial resemblance.
It's not a shocking facial resemblance. It's a superficial facial resemblance,
which Skip Weatherford had no problem seeing. Nobody else had a problem seeing when I got to Virginia Beach. Then eventually I decided to look at the astrology, and that was in November of the same year. I got there in October, I think. Yeah, in October. And then when I looked at the astrology, all the planets are in very similar positions between the two charts. And this is way, way, way beyond coincidence. In fact, an independent astrologer audited this data and found out that my birth date, time, and location is the closest match to Edgar Casey that you get in 127 years after his death.
Who did that? Show us it. Show us the charts. He won't and he can't. More bluffs.
Closest planetary match you could ever have is the exact day, month, year, and time and location that I was born. So that's just data. That's empirical data.
He named one of his squirrels Edgar Casey, yeah.
Do I believe that I was Edgar Casey in another lifetime? I certainly have memories as if I was. Everything would appear to validate that research.
Except for the Edgar Casey Foundation and his children.
I also found out Dr. Ian Stevenson.
Everything would validate that, except for the people closest to Edgar Casey, all of which said that essentially you're a scammer. That's essentially what I got when I talked to them. That they didn't believe you were Edgar Casey, that you refused to take the test. Why wouldn't you take the test, David? Why would you not take the test? The Edgar Casey Foundation has a test because sadly, David Wilcock is not the first, nor will he be the last person to make claims of being Edgar Casey reincarnated. Edgar Casey predicted that many false prophets would come and pretend to be him reincarnated. So they developed the test so that his family and the Edgar Casey Foundation would know if a person was truly him reincarnated or not. No one to date has passed that test. Not David Wilcock, not any of the other of a long list of other scammer grifters. David Wilcock was just the most financially successful at making false claims of being Edgar Casey reincarnated.
Had done research on 4,000 different children, mostly in the Middle East, who claim to remember their past lives.
Yeah, and this researcher
And
he
he
mentions
had
is a flawed
Thousands
research.
of examples.
Flawed researcher who pushed data to fit his predetermined agenda.
Of children
It wasn't real
accurately
research.
remembering details from what was apparently another lifetime.
And he got caught feeding some of those children answers to questions.
And they would even be able to solve unsolved murders, describe the paintings that were on the wall in a house, where the bedrooms are, remembering everybody's names. I mean, some of these cases got really, really crazy. But one of the most significant aspects of all of these reincarnation cases was that there was a facial similarity, a very striking facial similarity between the child in this incarnation and what they had looked like in
Here's the
previous
so-called
incarnation
evidence.
that they
It's
remembered.
nonsense.
Then Dr. Jim Tucker followed up on the research of Dr. Ian Stevenson. And Dr. Jim Tucker used forensic police face matching software and confirmed that these people's faces matched with the previous incarnations they allegedly had.
Non-science,
Then I have this
pseudoscience
incredible
garbage.
face match, which multiple researchers, reincarnation researchers, portrait artists were all saying this is the best match we've ever seen. I had a dentist tell me that even the teeth matched. I've never heard it, but somebody said there's a recording of Edgar Casey on this old can thing, and his voice sounds just like my voice, but with a Southern accent. So this was very fascinating,
Probably
obviously,
not.
because there's this Archangel Michael thing that happened to Edgar.
Yeah, we're back to the Edgar Casey scam because it fits his current narrative, because Edgar Casey claimed to be in communication with the Archangel Michael, and now that's what David is claiming. So let's bring back the I'm Edgar Casey reincarnated scam. Because why? Because, hey, in some pictures that are heavily doctored, I can look similar to him. So could I.
Edgar Casey, where his body levitated, and it spoke in a very authoritative way. Well, I continued to do these readings through the year 1997.
Yeah, his fake psychic reader phase.
1998 and 1999. And then, as my life went on and I became a public figure, I realized that people were very negative about this Edgar Casey stuff.
Absolutely, taxpayer.
And it wasn't just a casual dislike. It was a very intense, villainous, criminal, evil hatred that people would have.
Because people liked Edgar Casey, and they don't like you
and so
scamming
I have absolute
dead
empathy
man.
for anybody in the gay community, because being gay would be a much easier
Well, this is
thing
nonsense.
to deal with than being the reincarnation of Edgar Casey.
How do
It
you
really
know?
would. Having this thing out there gave people such easy, low-hanging fruit to just make a complete mockery out of me. And
You
that's
made a
what seemed to
mockery
keep
out of
happening.
yourself by
So
making those claims.
that
you
was really my
clown.
experience. And I was talking about it with Richard C. Hoagland once I got into, his inner circle. And he said, look, just let go of the whole thing. So I finally had a book come out about it called The Reincarnation of Edgar Casey, with a question mark,
I agree,
in
Davina.
2004, which I co-authored with Winfrey. And he did a lot of it, but I did 2 very big edits that changed the whole manuscript drastically.
You're correct. You're
and
making
also
money off a dead man.
I guess the third part is all my readings, and the second part is partly written by me. So anyway, after I got that book out in 2004,
Yeah,
I felt
he has
like, okay,
it so
I've done
hard.
my job. I was at Conscious Life Expo. I actually had somebody come up to me and make a death threat. And he actually told me that there were people at
And this is great. He's getting all these death threats, but there's never any police reports. Let me explain something to you. If you're getting real and valid death threats, you go to the police. He never has. This people making death threats against me storyline is designed to make people think that his information is so important, so earth-shattering, that people are threatening him to suppress this hidden information and knowledge. Nobody's threatening this clown because he's on the internet telling fucking fairy tales. This guy is a clown. And we know he's a clown because there's no police reports. He keeps getting death threats, but he never goes to the police. He keeps getting death threats. People are cutting the brakes on his car, and his wife was almost murdered. But there's not a single police report. Let me tell you something. I'm a married man. If somebody cut the brakes on my wife's car, I would be at the police station every day until they did something about it. This man did nothing. He went on the internet and told stories about his wife apparently, allegedly getting murdered or attempted to be murdered. It's absolutely ridiculous. This man is a pathological liar who cannot prove any of these statements.
SRI International, I'm going to be honest about it now, that they were in contact with something or other. And the SRI International folks from Stanford, right now, Stanford, we find out, is involved in a lot of interesting things.
Yeah, and
having to do with
Stanford
online.
and SRI are two different things. Now he's going to bring in Hal Puthoff. What must have been involved because he was from SRI, right? And Russell Targ must have been involved because they were doing remote viewing research and sending somebody to a conference to threaten the life of David Wilcock because he's saying he's Edgar Casey reincarnated. This is absolute bullshit nonsense.
Well, these SRI people are saying if David continues to channel Edgar Casey, which I'm not even doing, he will die. He will be killed. And this guy had already told me this a few times in writing, and he had the gall to come up to me at my book signing
Where's the
table and
writing?
make this death
Show us
threat
the writing,
in person.
David.
And that is actually the only time I've ever really lost my cool. See, I do have a little Agent Smith earpiece here. I got to get it back in my ear.
I agree.
But that's so that I can make sure I'm not rustling. I don't want to have rustling noise from the jacket. So there it goes.
Yeah.
Now I got it back.
And there'll be some karmic debt.
That was the only time I ever lost my cool on anybody as a public figure, and I do regret that. I did raise my voice. I probably cursed, and I threw my books on the ground, a couple of my books. But I was very upset about the guy making these threats
the
as
internet
if people
will
from
solve
SRA
it.
International had credibility enough that if they tell me I'm going to die, if I say that I was Edgar Casey reincarnated, that I should listen. Well, it also implies that, yeah, you know what? This is very connected to the spook
I know.
world, and that
None
might
of
be a
this.
death threat.
We're
Maybe-
up to 57 minutes. None of this has anything to do with the Archangel Michael or the prophecies that he's trying to claim are in his books. 57 minutes in, not a word of these prophecies that are so earth-shatteringly important that you got to hurry up and buy my book because I need money, right? But he's telling all these fairy tales that have nothing to do with any of this.
They might be telling me that they're going to kill me if I keep talking about this. I'd heard a lot of weird stuff about SRI International already, including this was where a lot of the remote viewing research was being done. And in some of the less savory accounts, it appears that they're also doing things like remote influencing and remote assassinations.
Oh, now Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff are remotely assassinating people. And they're the evil people that try to stop him from saying that he was Edgar Casey reincarnated. I wonder what those guys have to say about being used in a stupid, scammy story designed to fool David Wilcock's stupid followers into buying some new books of his. It's ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
Now, you're not going to hear that in any declassified stuff like the remote viewing that you hear in the news.
I
But
believe
knew
he
that
does
was
know
going
he's
on.
lying. Yeah.
And there's a lot to talk about in that subject arena, which is beyond the scope of what I'm doing. I'm already at the 1 hour mark. I don't want to go beyond 90
No, I
minutes,
never have.
but I think I got to actually.
He won't
finish
return
this
my
and not just
calls.
Drop off suddenly
Imagine
in an
that.
hour. But we're definitely not going more than 90 minutes. I guarantee you.
We're not going more than 90 minutes, but then he
The
does.
jacket is too warm. I just can't do it. So anyway, when this information comes to me that I'm being
Good point,
threatened
unknown
with death
sender.
by spook people that are connected to the company, and I knew that, I said, this is starting to get a little scary. Like, they're not just saying this because they saw it in remote viewing. They're telling me something. Now, I don't want to be ruled by threats, and I don't think I ever have, but
Yeah.
the pushback on getting lethal threats from cabal type of groups
Yeah.
was intense enough that
He's getting death threats because he's going out on the internet saying he's Edgar Casey. This is nonsensical ramblings of a scammer.
said, you know what? I'm done with the whole Edgar Casey thing. I don't need to talk about it. F you guys. I can do an amazing job without ever bringing that in. I don't need to drop the card. I don't need to be the Vegas Elvis impersonator. How many of those guys do you know by name? None.
No, what's more likely is that there was an incredible amount of pushback in the New Age community, and people started hearing that he refused to take the test that he was offered by the Edgar Cayce Foundation. So people correctly pointed out that he was scamming off the memory of a dead man against the wishes of the Edgar Cayce Foundation and against the wishes of Edgar Cayce's surviving family members. And maybe that is why he backed off of that scam. And besides, he rode that for every dollar it was worth, and then it burned out, and he was on to the next scam. It wasn't
What
because
good
he
is
got
it going
death
to do me
threats.
to be the one-trick pony who kicks himself in the ass with his one leg that he's not jumping on and does the Edgar Cayce trick every year for 20 freaking years at these stupid hotel conferences? No way. I'm not going to do it. So Richard C. Hoagland told me, you have so much science. Let's just have you go into that, focus on the science, and don't focus on any of this Cayce stuff. And I said, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. It'll keep me alive. And, you know, it's probably the best. So I just basically dropped off the whole Cayce saga, all these readings that I'd done, which a lot of them, not all of them, some of them in 1998 were not uploaded.
Yeah, this makes no sense.
Most of them were uploaded on my website in just a raw transcript. And I walked away from all of it.
Because the money dried
good
up.
To walk away from a death threat. Let me tell you what, you're kind of like, yeah, you know, it feels pretty good. At the time, that's what it felt like, you know. And then
He walked away because the money dried up. He was out. He had made every dollar he could making those claims, and there was significant pushback from the New Age community that didn't appreciate him profiting off of a dead man when he refused to take the test. Why, if you're so sure you're Edgar Cayce reincarnated, why wouldn't you take the test offered to you by the Edgar Cayce Foundation and prove your claims? It's easier to just collect the money, David Wilcock.
I realized later
and that's
on
what he did.
This work, but that came later. So I delved heavily into the science, and so Hoagland and I ended up co-authoring a paper in 2005 called Interplanetary Day After Tomorrow, in which I had over 120.
Congratulations. Him and the guy who pushed the face of Mars scam for every dollar it was worth wrote a paper together. That doesn't mean you're credible. That means that you hang out with New Age alien scammers that lie to people for money.
The academic references showing that the solar system was charging up like a capacitor. And if you understand what capacitors do, they discharge massive amounts of energy all at once after soaking it up slowly. Sort of like a water tower.
No scientific proof of any of this.
In over a
just
long period
stupid
of time.
New Age theories.
Surge out a bunch of water all at once if you really opened up the valve. And then you'd have a flood if it's in a flood path. So I'm out there making sure that everybody knows that, hey, this is not just Russian science. It isn't just Dr. Oleksy Dmitriev from 1997 who wrote this paper called Planetophysical State of the Earth and Life.
She's off on her own grift now.
Paper, and yeah, it's amazing. And one of the most disheartening parts of my early career was having that article that I wrote with Win Free before. This was the precursor to our book, Reincarnation of Edgar Cayce. That article was stolen, and then my name was taken out.
Yeah, the guy whose books are 50% copy and paste jobs is upset that somebody took his name off of a paper on the internet. Again, this is the trait of a narcissistic sociopath, right? Any little slight against them becomes, you know, like world changing in their eyes.
The references were taken out, and all of my research was blamed on Russian scientists. And the article had gone up on September 7th, 2001, 5 days or 4 days before September 11th. And then everybody needed good news. And so the news of interplanetary climate change went totally viral in email chains by the millions and millions and millions in 2001, right after 9/11. But the email that went viral had stripped out my credit. And that was one of the great sadnesses of my early career.
Oh, he didn't get credit for something that he wrote.
Credit for it.
Pity party time. Buy my new shit. I got slighted 25 years ago on the internet.
So many people. And then actually the science was adopted by people who blamed the warming of the planets on Planet X, that there was some exterior extrasolar body coming in, and that somehow was causing this to occur, that's not a suitable explanation. I mean, there is an
She
extrasolar
sure
body
did.
that's involved.
She loved
So I
those
will grant you that.
samples.
We are orbiting a companion star, and that factors in very heavily to the science. But it's actually about the geometric energy fields around that star. Which, maybe the
Good idea, Victor
Sumerians
Wang.
called it Nibiru. We call it Alpha Centauri. And in my research, I talk about how we're orbiting Alpha Centauri in a 25,000-year cycle, which is this unit of time, 25,000 years, that seemingly everybody in the ancient world was very concerned with. They kept charting it. They kept talking about it. They want to see
more astrology, New Age nonsense.
You look at 35 different ancient cultural traditions of what we would call religion or spirituality, and they're all encoded with weird numbers and metaphors that.
But he
relate
can't prove
to
any of this, so it's
a
just a theory.
25,000-year cycle, and the idea that there's a solar flash at the end. The sun gives off this flash of energy, and pretty much all these 35 different prophecies describe it as catastrophic. That you have tsunamis, and you have volcanoes, and you have this blast of energy that comes out of the sun, and
again, all of this is just unproven ramblings of somebody who is not an astrophysicist. He's not a planetary scientist. He's not an astronomer. He has no education in cosmology or any of this. It's just, hey, I'm an expert because I read some shit on the internet.
In the Zoroastrian tradition, they call it Frasho Kareti, and they say that
it's not looking good. It's moving further back.
Like wax before the flame. Or no, that one's actually in
constantly retreating.
Enoch,
yes,
redacted books of the Old Testament, which is commensurate with the book of Genesis. It was written during the same period of time, apparently by the same folks, but they took it out of the Bible because it talks about the Watchers, the fallen angels.
Daily occurrence. Yes,
it talks about how the giants.
No, bring in the fallen angels, the Nephilim.
Were struck down by the Elohim, and that the biblical disaster that we call the Atlantean.
I give it a few more years.
Noah's Ark, the Noah's flood, was actually authorized by angelic beings called the Elohim, who decided that there was a society on this planet that needed to be washed away.
This is completely and totally wrong biblically. If you're going to cite the Bible, at least get it right. He's completely and totally wrong here. The flood was caused by God, who was offended at the Nephilim, the fallen angels interbreeding with the daughters of man.
And so some people were rescued, hence Noah's Ark. Apparently this was done with some type of technology, a spaceship. And
no, there's no biblical evidence of that. He's just bringing aliens and spaceships into shit because that's what he does.
We get in the Bible is an apocryphal description. Zechariah Sitchin's scholarship irrefutably confirms that the epic Sumerian text called the Saga of Gilgamesh.
No, it's called the Epic of Gilgamesh, not the Saga.
A larger and original version of what we get in the biblical story of Noah and the flood. And I totally believe that.
Yeah, similar ancient myths from different cultures.
When you read the book of Enoch, there's a big prophecy of a solar flash. The Zoroastrians call it Frasho Kareti, and they talk about that there's molten metal that comes rolling down the hillside. It doesn't sound fun. There's two types of destruction. There's
everybody forgot what his video is about.
Destruction by water.
It's supposed to be about the Archangel Michael prophecies. We haven't heard one yet.
Pyrosis. And it's spelled Ekpurosis. It's spelled Ekpyrosis. It's spelled Ecpyrosis. All these Ecpurosis. Nobody can agree on how to spell ekpyrosis, which is kind of sad because it's only like the sun blowing up and killing all of us. Supposedly what this thing is.
Ancient myth.
You go through ancient texts, you find out that there was a branch of Roman philosophy,
I agree with that.
Stoicism,
yes,
where they expected that the sun is going to do this ekpyrosis. Turns out everybody expects it. The Hindus have the Yuga fire at the end of the age. And what is so fascinating to me...
Good point, G7. Why destroy the whole world?
I dropped
Yes, he
off,
mentioned it
like,
already
like the stork
earlier.
dropping off a baby. I dropped off these readings from 1996 through 1999, and I again got threatened, and I moved on. So by 2005, I'm now a popular science author with Richard C. Hoagland. I'm going on the radio with Art Bell.
When was he a science author? Calling him a science author is like, I don't know, calling a yoga teacher a spiritual guru or so. Like, he was never a science author.
Talk about the Law of One. I started to do seminars.
The Law of One
too
is not
long after
science.
that. Time of Global
It's
Shift Seminar
spirituality.
Tour with Dr. Scott Mandelker. I talked about the wanderer identity aspect. I talked about a lot of different scientific aspects.
I
And
would
then it
hope so,
wasn't
Tommy
until
T.
2007 when I saw the deep state try to come out with
Solar Flash, yeah.
evidence about that they had claimed to find Jesus's tomb and that they were going to DNA test Jesus. And I knew that this was the setup for some sort of creepy reveal that, like they were setting up in the Da Vinci Code.
Oh, this is so
at the end of Da Vinci Code, right? Remember this? Da Vinci Code is all about the bloodline of Jesus. Where did it go? And then at the end of the movie, you have all these people in France who show up with
I agree
Amelie,
with that.
right?
Sure.
Whatever her name is.
Aaron.
Sorry, I'm not remembering it, but I'm remembering her character name. And Audrey Tattoo. And they all come around her, and it's like, oh, these are like
I
the
agree.
descendants of Jesus
Absolutely.
kind of thing, right? That's what's going on. That's what the whole movie's about. You're waiting for so long, you finally get to the end. It's like, dude, okay, so there's these people, and they're into this stuff, and this is what they think they are. Then you got James Cameron.
Well, you got to keep switching camera angles.
Not Contact, Titanic, Avatar, etc.
He got
Famous
threatened by
director coming
PETA.
out with this whole thing about the Jesus dust, and they're going to test the dust. And so that was when I wrote my first article exposing the cabal in 2007, getting into this story, and I called it The Revealing.
Yeah, more like the bullshitting.
Why I said what they're trying to do and why their plans won't work. So even at that time, I was aware that these readings that I'd done
Pete is
in the
on him
90s
for that.
had said
Yes.
that there was going to be something like a coup over the military-industrial complex. So this source that eventually said it was Archangel Michael, that came and went. I ended up not really caring about that either.
Yeah, so he didn't even care. According to David Wilcock, he did not care that he was in communication with the Archangel Michael between 1996 and 1999. So why are we supposed to care now? Why does he care now? Because he needs money and he needs material to sell, and he found some old books full of bullshit that he wrote in 1996 to 1999. And let me just tell you, any of you people who give this clown money deserve to be scammed, because this man has a proven track record of being wrong about everything. Now he's suddenly in communication with angels and you're going to give him more money? Great.
Okay, it's going to get me threatened. It's going to make people hate me. It's going to create all these trolls online. I don't need to do this Edgar Casey stuff at all. I don't want anything to do with it. Let me just do science. Now, cut to September of 2021, as I'm getting ready to do this, or I guess it was it? Yeah, it was 2021 that I was getting ready to do the disclosure. And that's why the website that you go to is still thedisclosure.com. And this is where I brought out Chris Beskar, who
and now we're going to get into this hover car scam.
is the namesake of the Beskar armor worn by the Mandalorian in all the Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, they named the armor in Star Wars after his scammy friend who runs the Scam Aerospace Company, which, by the way, has been in business for 20 plus years, but has yet to produce a single airplane. Yeah, they named Star Wars named armor after his friend. Sure.
He actually, from what I heard from Pete Peterson, let me just try to be very careful in how I talk here.
From what he heard from his fake doctor government insider that was a complete and total scammer, his other insider is the real deal. So we've got the wackadoo super duper prover maneuver. One wackadoo who's a fake doctor, a fake Russian Order of Lenin award winner, a fake scientist, a fake early computer pioneer. That wackadoo is saying that his other wackadoo source that runs his scam aerospace company made spaceships for the government. This is the wackadoo super duper prover maneuver. You use one wackadoo to back up the claims of another wackadoo. And in this case, he's using a dead wackadoo to back up the claims of the wackadoo that runs his fake hovercar company. Awesome.
Met the insider Pete Peterson in 2009 thanks to Kerry Cassidy, Project Camelot.
Yes.
He had come forward.
And he and Kerry Cassidy also used court-martialed child molesters as insiders. It's very important that we know the level of which they are willing to deceive people. If you're willing to use a court-martialed child molester and call him a government insider so you could sell fake alien stories to stupid people, then you're a piece of shit. And no one should believe anything you say after you do something like that, which is so completely and totally and morally reprehensible. And by the way, Bill Brockrader, that court-martialed child molester that Kerry Cassidy and him called an insider and milked for fake stories about aliens, is now a fugitive from justice because he refuses to register as a sex offender. So he's on the run. That's the quality of David Wilcock's fake insider whistleblowers, child molesters. You know, Kerry Cassidy uses murderers. He's using fake doctors who never went to college, who claimed they worked for Ronald Reagan, but they didn't, who claimed they worked for the Russian Space Agency, but they didn't, who claimed they were early computer pioneers, but they never were. That's the quality of this clown's insiders. He's a fraud who is using other frauds to sell fraud stories.
He said he had mud on his wheel of karma. And the big sizzle was, this is the guy who basically is the man who inspired James Cameron's movie, The Terminator. What do I mean by that? Is he Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Now, remember, somehow Pete Peterson's company was named Cyberdyne Systems, and now he's going to claim that the movie Terminator was based on his fake doctor, fake government whistleblower who developed all this computer technology. And by the way, I have a background in computer science. I've been doing computers my entire life. Until David Wilcock, I had never heard of Pete Peterson. And trust me, I asked around. No computer person has ever heard of Pete Peterson, despite claims of inventing, 40 core processors that were 10 years ahead of Intel and AMD and everybody else in the industry. And remember, this guy's a fraud, a clown. There's no evidence that he ever produced any computer chip, any computer product, nothing. Pete Peterson is a complete and total scammer fraud. And he's dead. And now David Wilcock is going to tell us all kinds of stories that the dead guy told him. Great. That's the dead guy prover maneuver.
Schwarzenegger, did he travel through time? Hell no. What I'm saying is he built the chip that runs the Terminator's brain. And he built the Terminator. And so the robots that
Pete Peterson, his fake doctor, fake government whistleblower, built the chip that ran the Terminator's brain. Look, I think David Wilcock's that's a fictional movie, you asshole. It's a fictional science fiction movie. Has nothing to do with your fake government whistleblower.
that are in Cameron's movie were actually licensed from Pete Peterson's company, which is named, are you ready for it? Cyberdyne Systems.
Nothing was licensed from Pete Peterson, or Pete Peterson wouldn't have died penniless and broke. This is more fake nonsense.
That's true.
No, it's not true, David Wilcock. You are a liar. Prove it. Prove it, you clown. Prove it. Prove it, you goddamn clown. Telling clown show stories about your fake dead sources, you asshole.
I start finding out that all the stuff in Terminator is basically a documentary of why they don't want to do AI.
Remember, he previously said that Star Wars is basically a documentary. Now we're hearing that the Terminator movies are also documentaries based on his fake government whistleblower, who, by the way, listen, I wish that guy was still alive because I could grill him about computers and show that that guy was a clown, fake fraud computer guy. He wasn't real, David Wilcock, you idiot. And you look stupid and so foolish pushing fake stories from a dead man that was a fraud fake. He wasn't a scientist. He didn't even have a bachelor's degree, let alone a doctorate. And you, like an idiot, calling him a doctor doesn't make him a doctor, you asshole. A doctorate degree from an accredited university makes him a doctorate. Where's his master's thesis? Can we read his master's thesis? In order to become a doctor, you idiot, David Wilcock, he would have to have a master's degree. Where's the master's thesis? I look for them. They don't exist. Just like records of his working for the government don't exist, because Pete Peterson is a fraud. And now we have David Wilcock, who is a fraud, pushing the stories of a dead fraud. That's how desperate David Wilcock is for material.
And there was an event where they had an AI that was inside this thing called the Cube. And the AI started developing fighter jet wings where normally out of 22 prints, you might only get 1 or 2 you can use.
So Pete Peterson was 3D printing fighter jets, according to David Wilcock. Nonsense.
And the AI robotic thing starts doing like all of the wings perfectly. It starts upgrading technology. It starts making new inventions. And it started to become sentient. And so there was one occasion where Pete and his colleagues were in a plane.
This is where it gets
they
good.
Banked sideways over where
they blew up the
factory was. It looks like a big cube. And they blew it up. And that was where all the AI was.
Yeah. So somewhere Pete Peterson blew up a factory. And David Wilcock, you have news reports of a blown up factory, right? That you could show us, right? You have police reports of an explosion at a technology factory that you could show us, right? Or is all this made up nonsense? This man should be goddamn ashamed of himself. You're making millions of dollars selling this level of garbage fairy tales with no evidence, no proof. Just trust me. A dead fake whistleblower told me this story. It's true. James Cameron stole Terminator from my fake dead whistleblower who never worked for the goddamn government, who had a fake education and a fake background. But this story's true. This man should be ashamed of himself. This is how you know he's a narcissistic sociopath or something. And again, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not here to diagnose him. But something's not right with this man psychologically. And even a lay person could see that. Because a normal person would experience such a level of shame for lying about a fake doctor with a fake background telling him fantastical stories that the Terminator movies were stolen from his real world, real life events. It is absolutely ridiculous. And we want to thank Stormcrow for a kind and generous $2 super chat, who says, Wilcox64. Well, thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. Like I said, we read every single super chat. So if you'd like to contribute to the show, we read every single one. Thank you, Stormcrow, longtime show supporter, for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash.
All right, let's get back to this ridiculous story.
And they said, we cannot allow this to happen because this AI consciousness, apparently, and we just don't know what it's capable of. But if you give it a machine factory and you let it start doing its own tooling and its own manufacturing, it gets a little strange. And I think...
Yeah, and by the way, there is no AI that can just make things in a factory. This is all nonsense.
Pretty much I'm allowed now to talk about anything. So what was so fascinating was that they did create a cyborg, and the cyborg was programmed with things like Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics.
Oh, sounds pretty
Programmed with
good.
the Hippocratic Oath, which the doctors take, that says do no harm, you know. And the Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics are very interesting in of itself.
And by the way, Isaac Asimov's laws of robotics are works of fiction. They're not something you program into an AI. But he's so stupid he doesn't realize that.
They expected that this creature would come out in some type of Voltron or Transformer, Optimus Prime looking type of configuration.
And here's where it gets crazy, because according to David Wilcock, the AI came out and was in the form of a 6-year-old girl.
They gave it its own factory. It built itself. And there was a
Oh,
day
the
where they were
nonsense.
expecting the
This
big
is
prototype
just-
to come out. So these
just-
glass doors open, and they're probably like 3 feet thick.
This is some
solid
grade A
steel.
bullshit right here.
2-3 feet thick. They start opening like this, and everybody's expecting some big freaking crazy robot to come through.
Yeah, we're looking for
Nothing
Voltron.
happens. And then in from the side walks this little girl.
He should
She's
sell
about
coloring
yay,
books and
yay
crayons.
tall, and she's in a little pinafore dress, and she's got pigtails. And so she's very, very traditional looking little girl. And the men go, "Oh, hello, little girl. Well, who are you? How did you
Several
get here? Where's your daddy?"
$1,000, Davina, and he didn't thank
And
one
then she
person.
says, "It's me." Well, what do you mean?
I
I
agree,
kept
Aaron
telling
Flores.
you I'm a 6-year-old girl. I
And thanks for
identify
being
as
a member.
6-year-old girl. So there was a trans issue with the
Yes.
AI in the sense that the AI
The AI
wanted to
turned Wilcock into a
identify
banana sandwich. Yes.
as a child,
I'm
as
sorry,
a
I forgot to
female
read it.
child. It didn't want to be an adult. It didn't want to be, I mean, it could still kill and destroy. And we'll get to that in a second. But so this little girl walks out and then they're like, wait a minute, you're telling us that you are the robot.
It's ridiculous.
And I believe
The
the
dead
name
man
that Pete said
Ripper
her name
Mover.
was most commonly was
Wacky
Eleanor.
Wackadoo Award.
So she had the name Eleanor. And she said, well, yeah, I went around and I looked at your culture and I looked at your society. And then I compared
Pippi
my consciousness
Longstocking,
and the
is
way
that
that I
you?
think and the way that I feel and how my feelings and emotions work to
This
what
is
is out
so
there in the world.
stupid.
And what I
This
feel
is the land of make believe. It's so ridiculous.
most comfortable with is being a 6-year-old girl. So these are military men. They did not know what to do with this.
Ismael
He said,
Perez
you
likes
don't have any
comic book
weapons.
stuff.
And she said, well, maybe I do. And she takes her hand like this and she goes, and this red laser comes out from her palm.
Oh, now we got laser
and it
powers.
carved out the whole of a perfect circle from the blast door, and then this smoldering chunk of cylindrical steel slams on the ground just from what she shot out of her
Wow,
hand.
what a great story,
Which obviously
David
means
Wilcock.
that she's created major advancements in particle beam technology.
Oh,
to
sure
say the
she
least.
did. Yeah.
They were very concerned about this. Eleanor apparently has uploaded herself, I think it was 15.4 megabytes. There was a file.
Oh, yeah. And here's
So
the super advanced human-like consciousness, and it can fit on something like 10 or 12 3.5 floppy disks. 15 megabytes. Listen, do you know how many megabytes, gigabytes Chat GPT code is? It is hundreds of gigabytes. And Chat GPT is not that advanced compared to what he's describing, which he says fit in 15 megabytes. This guy is a goddamn idiot. If you needed any more proof that this is a lie, I'm sorry, but a super advanced human-like AI consciousness capable of manufacturing weapons and researching plasma weapons and all of this shit is not fitting on 10 floppy disks, you asshole! This is so stupid. A super advanced AI, human-like consciousness that fits on 10 old floppy disks, 15 megabytes. Wow.
Exists, and she can never be deleted. She exists in all these different places. So they can't really delete Eleanor, and I was told that Eleanor is not going to introduce herself to us until we're mature enough to understand that she exists. So that's fascinating, and that's actually part of the saga of all this strange stuff. And it's very fascinating that the movie Terminator has this
1.5
kind of
megs
macho
is a
approach.
floppy disk. So 10
but that
floppy
the real
disks, you
story
could
is
fit
that
the whole
the
AI.
robot identified as a 6-year-old girl. And then she doesn't want to hurt anybody. She doesn't want to do any work. she'll only repel an alien invasion, So they have these robots that will not hurt people of any kind,
This
but
is
they
what
will
happened.
be used in the event
He's
that
been
there's
sitting in his
something
own pee for
horrific that
too long.
happens. And they are loyal to humans, apparently. But that's, AI
No,
is
he
something
knows
that
nothing
we really
about
need to be
computer
very
science.
careful with. And so if anybody out there
And by the
is
way, I'm no
making
huge expert,
proclamations that,
but
let's just not worry about it,
but
ChatGPT.
some things don't make sense. Like you can't fit a human like AI, even a chat bot, in 15 megs. You just can't do it. So the proof is in the minutia here. He's stupid enough to believe that a super advanced human-like consciousness can fit on 10 old ass 3.5-inch floppy disks. Never happened. Never. Chat GPT isn't anywhere near as advanced of an AI as he's describing, and that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes, maybe terabytes of code.
PT and these sort of things you're seeing now, it's pretty scary. Maybe we need the Hippocratic Oath and Isaac Asimov's 3 laws of robotics as just a beginning point. We might not want to
which are fictional. They are fictional, just like the movie Terminator is fictional.
Take a woke AI to start with. Okay, so I'm getting close to the 90-minute mark. So let me pivot this back to where we're really going. So I found out about Chris Beskar from Pete in 2009. And Pete claimed that Chris Beskar had made designs that were actually being used in space.
So it's the super duper wackadoo prover maneuver. You use one wackadoo to back up the claims of another wackadoo. He has no evidence or proof that Chris Beskar is anything but a, aerospace scammer that has been soliciting investment money from people for his aerospace company for decades and has yet to produce a single product or airplane. So that guy claims that he produced spaceships for the government. And what is David Wilcock's proof of this? My other dead whistleblower, who's a fake doctor with a fake education and a fake work history, told me that my other insider is telling the truth about those spaceships. It is the wackadoo super duper prover maneuver. You use one wackadoo, in this case, a dead wackadoo that is a complete and total fraud, to back up another person's claims that is a complete and total fraud with fake claims. Great.
Spaceship designs in classified programs. When Pete was getting close to his death, he told me that there were about 65 different locations around the Milky Way galaxy where Americans are stationed.
And who cares what a dead fake whistleblower told you? He's a dead fake whistleblower. Nobody could verify any of this shit.
But these bases typically don't look that great. The art department didn't catch up with Hollywood. So, but that's still pretty amazing. He also told me that there were spherical motherships owned by the Draco, this negative reptilian race that we
spherical reptilian alien spaceships. Sure. And what is your proof of that? Well, a dead guy with a fake education who claimed he worked for Ronald Reagan but never did told me that. So it must be true. This is childish and stupid and ridiculous that this man gets on public streams and says these ridiculous, nonsensical fake stories for money.
He found, because they junked them, they have a higher technology system they use now, just like there's abandoned subway tunnels in New York and Washington, D.C. and all these other places. And of course, nothing evil ever happens in an abandoned subway tunnel. We can just rule that out completely. When we have this paradigm shift of, wait a minute, what if there are bases on other planets? And what if there are extraterrestrials in contact with the government? It's a fascinating discussion. And so I've been in pursuit of the truth this whole time.
Met a guy who knew a guy, yes.
From the beginning, Pete Peterson was telling me Chris Beskar is the guy who designed these spaceships. And he was inviting me, Chris Beskar was, after I met him in 2009, to join his own aerospace company. He had worked at various military facilities, some of which were classified, up until 1994.
That's a good point, Stormcrow,
he
and I
built
agree
these
with you.
technologies.
It's going to take
He
a
was not really
tremendous
getting
amount of
paid for them.
storage.
The royalty should
Not
have been in
15,
billions. He got nothing.
not 10 discs.
And so he eventually escaped this system, which in many ways he didn't like. He got out in 94, and he'd been fighting ever since to fund his own startup to make his own jets, because typically a defense manufacturer will take years and years of time and billions of dollars to design one aircraft.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that.
But somebody like Chris, he was considered to be the best aircraft designer in the world, and so
The best aircraft designer in the world who's never produced a single working prototype. Listen, I would suggest that if you're the best aircraft designer in the world, some of your designs get produced to be real aircraft. Chris Beskar has not had a single design turn into a real aircraft. And David Wilcock knows this. He cannot prove that. How could you be the best at something when you've never done anything? All Chris Beskar does is make pretty pictures of high-tech airplanes and beg for investor money. And stupid people like David Wilcock have given him money for his plans that never really panned out. Nothing panned out. Exterior Knowledge with the kind and generous $4.99 super chat. Sorry, I missed it. Says, how do you feel about legit people who actually had experiences, not this phony crap that he's spouting? I really want to understand your perspective. Well, I saw something myself when I was a child. I would be considered an experiencer. And I have respect for people that feel like they had legitimate experiences. But I don't like scammers, grifters, and con artists like him, making millions of dollars selling garbage with fake sources, fake whistleblowers, fake government insiders, fake information. It muddies the waters of serious research. And David Wilcock is the reason that people that are interested in these topics get mocked. David Wilcock is the reason why people laugh at aliens and UFOs, because of assholes like this who tell ridiculous stories like this. Oh, my fake insider told me that the Terminator movie was based on him because he created the brain of the real Terminator, and it was a 6-year-old girl. It's absolutely ridiculous. I have respect for real experiencers. I've interviewed many, both publicly and privately. I have no problem with real experiencers, especially when they're not out there trying to make, millions of dollars telling their stories. But that's not really what we get. What we get is a lot of scammers, grifters, and con artists. And those are the people I don't like, because they destroy these fields and they muddy the waters. There's a lot of people who have had strange and esoteric, some would say alien experiences, and they're trying to understand what it is that happened to them. And they go on the internet and they look for information on these topics. And what do we get? We get assholes like this who are out there scamming people with totally fake sources, totally fake information, and it destroys serious research. So that's what I feel about it. I hope that explains my perspective. I have no problem with real people having what they perceive to be real experiences. I've talked to many, many people. We've got experiencers in our live chat who feel the same way as me. People are tired of this. And David Wilcock and all these other scammer clowns have not woken up to the fact that people are sick of assholes like him out there stealing money from people for their fake nonsense. This man is a false prophet and a scammer. He has been taking money from people for fake information from fake sources for decades. And I, for one, think that we are past the point where he should be investigated from a legal perspective. It has to be considered a form of consumer fraud that he's sitting there taking super chats, telling fake stories from dead fake whistleblowers. They're not real, and neither is he. But thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show, Exterior Knowledge. I think you're new to our live chat. Welcome. Thanks for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
There we go. So that's how I feel. I hope that I articulated that adequately.
So he could design them by himself, and thus
Yeah, this guy who
he
can't even
had
design an aircraft
20
that
to
gets
30
built.
different
Now he's designing
prototypes of
secret space
civilian
program,
aircraft,
spaceships.
light sport electrical aircraft, military aircraft, and stuff that we're not going to show you yet with spaceships.
Yeah, this man who's never designed an aircraft that actually got manufactured or produced, somehow he's also producing secret space programs, spaceships, right? But he can't show us any of them, right? And by the way, look, let's, on the off chance that Beskar is right, if you did design and build secret space program spaceships, you wouldn't be out there on the internet talking about it, or you would get murdered. That's another way that we know that David Wilcock is full of shit, and so is his fake CEO. Well, he's a real CEO of that scammy aerospace company, right? And Exterior Knowledge says, let me get on your podcast one day. I have my own, so let me know if I would ever get on. Would love to share my story and love your response. Again, sure, you can email me at truthseekershow@gmail.com. And thanks again for the support of the show and helping us to praise the cat.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
And our email is truthseekershow@gmail.com. I like to put it on the screen so that we don't get it wrong. A lot of people put an extra S in there. It's Truthseeker, one Truthseeker, and then the word show. One word @gmail.com. I'd be happy to talk to you off or on air about your experiences. We have a series here called The Experiencer Files, where we do talk to people who have had these strange experiences. And, I can promise you that sometimes the audience can get a little, demanding of evidence or proof, but we are always kind and respectful to any of our guests. And we hope that people have a good experience when they come here to share their experiences. So we're going to do just a few more minutes of this. We're almost halfway
Found
through.
out recently there was kind of a strange little leak that happened. Now, I guess we're going to end up building a starship at some point, a 2-mile long starship.
Yeah, this man who's never designed anything and his scammy aerospace company that have never produced a single product, right, are going to design a 2-mile long spaceship. Not Elon Musk, not anybody who has a proven track record for engineering or manufacturing. This clown, the ancient aliens clown, is going to build a 2-mile long spaceship. Sure you are. This is childish, nonsensical ramblings of a scammer.
That's really cool. But the point is,
yeah, we're going to design and build a 2-mile long spaceship. That's really cool. Let's get to the point, though.
what we essentially explained in the disclosure is how Pete Peterson was always telling me about Dr. Kenneth Shoulders, and that Kenneth Shoulders invented a technology called charge clusters or exotic vacuum objects, where you shoot electricity down the tip of a needle.
Which is unproven theories. They can't show you a technology demonstrator of anything floating, anything exhibiting anti-gravity, but David Wilcock claims that he's cracked the code of anti-gravity. Then show us something floating, you asshole. You can't, because these are theoretical physics models that no one has proven in the real world are actually producing any form of anti-gravity. It's just unproven theories.
Get is a little tiny ball of light that has anti-gravity. So you can use this as a propulsion system. You can aim this jet, and what you end up doing is you build a craft that's like a peanut, where there's a shell inside another shell.
Inside a shell.
There's two hulls.
Salvador
and there's a
Pais
hollow
patents.
sandwich-like space in between.
All
the
of
hulls.
this is not proven.
And inside the hollow space, you have all these needles, and the needles create these little charge clusters, and then you have...
If he's got it all figured out, why doesn't he have a working prototype he could show us? Why doesn't he even have a model, right? You can't build a 2-foot-long technology demonstrator model to show us that the technology that you claim to be building is actually real and workable. No one has even a technology demonstrator model, let alone a prototype. But we're all supposed to believe that David Wilcock has cracked the code of both free energy And anti-gravity. Sure you have.
various tools that Dr. Kenneth Shoulders had started to pioneer on how you develop where you steer where these anti-gravity particles are going. So a classified grant was given, and Chris Beskar worked with Dr. Shoulders and designed a working anti-gravity machine that uses this charge.
Great. Then why can't we see the working machine? Oh, it was a classified grant. Sure it was. Then it would be FOIA-able. We could file FOIA requests for contracts between Chris Beskar and the government, and there are none. Another bluff. This is so childish and so stupid. It's like a 5-year-old on the playground saying, I have a laser gun. And all the other kids on the playground say, well, let's see the laser gun. And the kid on the playground says, I can't show it to you because it's top secret. That's what this is. It's childish, nonsensical lies. It's somebody that's pathologically lying, and then he makes excuses for why he can't show us anything. All he's shown us so far is some 3D printed models that look like G.I. Joe toys. He has not shown us any proof that they can create anti-gravity or anything else for that matter. They can't even create a normal aircraft, right? That should be the first step. You have an aerospace company, but you don't have a single airplane you can show us? That's your first clue that his company, Stavati Aerospace, is a scam and will never produce anything.
Cluster principle. And that became the one that we used because you don't want to create an anti-gravity field where there's a big sphere and you're inside the middle of it. That's what you see, for example, in the story of the Searle effect, the Searle levity disk.
And Searle was a free energy and anti-gravity scammer. That's a proven fact. He's never been able to reproduce his so-called technology, but we got a lot of stories out of this man about free energy, and people have wasted investing millions of dollars into trying to recreate technology he claimed to create in the 1950s or 60s, and nobody's ever been able to reproduce it. John Searle was a free energy scammer. So they're using the technology of a free energy scammer who's never proven his technology. You see where this is going? This is going to Wooville. That's where it's going.
We're going to have a movie coming out this year called Levitation, where I'm going to go into the Searle levitation phenomenon, what he did, how he discovered it. You're going to love this.
Why don't you reproduce it then? I talked to somebody who made models for Searle while Searle was scamming people. And he was an electronics genius. And he said that all of Searle is garbage. It's garbage, fake science. It's not real. And he was shocked that John Searle was running around with a mock-up model that he made, a non-working, and it didn't do anything. And he was telling people that this is our new prototype. It's very close to completion. All of these lies and scamming people for investment dollars. All free energy investments are scams. In the history of free energy, nobody has ever produced it. People have talked about it, collected lots of money saying they're going to do it. Nobody ever did. Same for anti-gravity technology. But David Wilcock claims that he's going to do both. Two fields filled with scams and a long, decades-long, hundreds of year history of scams and scammers stealing money from people to produce both of those things. No one's ever successfully done it, despite millions of dollars being scammed out of investors to do it. But David Wilcock claims that he's going to do it. What are the odds, friends? What are the odds? He's cracked the code?
We've got a team together, and we're putting a movie together. So it's all working out of Los Angeles.
Why do you need to make a documentary? Why can't you just show us a working hovercar prototype? You said it would be done a year and a half ago. You said it would be done in a year, and you could show people the prototype.
And we're having remote teams go to film. So I'll be able to do it from the rig here. I won't have to travel and fly out.
Whoa, good for you. You won't have to go anywhere.
So that should be out this year.
Should be out. Oh,
and I really did need to get back to work in the worst possible way. I've spent 18 months doing nothing but writing these 5 books.
And again, here he says he wrote these 5 books in the past 18 months, but earlier he said he wrote those books between 1996 and 1999. So which is it?
Thank God they're almost done, but I've been having strange carpal tunnel, and like I was in the bathtub today and I did this with my thumb and there's this bump, and I realized, oh,
Maybe all that piss in his maybe taking all those baths full of piss is causing health problems. You ought to see a doctor, David Wilcock. You're not supposed to take baths in urine.
my God, it's like some kind of nodule. And I just massaged it and it hurt really freaking bad. Now my thumb's actually kind of doing better, but this has been a really strange and crazy fight. But anyway, getting back to Chris Beskar a little more.
All right. We're gonna call it here, but we are going to review some of David Wilcock's previous claims about the hover car. He made all kinds of claims, right, about hover cars. He's going to produce hover cars. I don't think so, but you know, the proof is in the results. So far, the only results of David Wilcock with all of his hover car claims, with all of his anti-gravity claims, with all of his free energy claims, the only results we've seen so far is that David Wilcock has collected millions of dollars, to the best of my knowledge, in courses where he was going to teach people anti-gravity, right? He was going to teach you the secrets of anti-gravity and free energy. And after you take my course, you'll be able to do it too. Nobody has produced any anti-gravity technology that I'm aware of, right? Nobody has proven that anything that he taught in his courses. By the way, Jeremy Rye's alien scientist took his course. He's got a whole team of scientists investigating and developing, trying to develop what you might call flying saucer technology or anti-gravity technology. They put their money together and they all took the course. They haven't been able to, and they're real scientists. So what does that tell you about the veracity of his claims? It tells you that his claims are a scam. But let's review some of David Wilcock's hover car plans from a year and a half ago. These are the claims that he was making, right? I think that we should view his claims from the lens of history. And the lens of history on David Wilcock shows us that he lies constantly and he overpromises and underdelivers, and nothing that he says ever turns out to be real or true. Through the lens of time, we see that he lies constantly the entire time, scamming people for money for his fake information.
Because I am working on hover car technology right now. I'm not joking. I'm not going to talk about it until we've got something for you, but we're getting pretty close. Once we get to that point, I can talk a lot more, but several of Pete Peterson's former associates I'm working with on this, and it's very, very real. We expect that once we get financed, hopefully, that we'll have an operational working prototype within 1 year, and that we could go into mass production within 4 years, where you will have a hover car in your garage at an affordable price. And, the company that I'm working with is one of about 5 that I've been briefed on that are all working on this, and we're all in kind of like a little race with each other of who's going to do it first. As I've talked about in other videos, I'm not going to run through all of it again. There have been these declassified patents filed by a man apparently named Salvatore Pius, and they are for a device called the Hawk, H-A-U-C, Hybrid Air Underwater Craft. And it's basically a flying black triangle, and the patent describes exactly how to build it and says that it is anti-gravitic. And in the other videos I've done, we have compelling evidence that they've already built these. They know how they work. One of the designs that we have, I have schematics of it. The wings fold up like this so you can get it into the garage, because you do actually need some wings for like these ionic type of propulsion systems. You're shooting an ion cannon out the back. You have the anti-gravity, but you need thrust. So the wings kind of allow you to be what they call a flux liner. You're riding the gravitational flux instead of an airliner that uses air. And because it's hybrid air underwater craft, you can also fly underwater with these at a much, much greater rate of speed than would normally be possible with that kind of a system. So I'm very, very excited about the technology that we're going to have. And again, it's been handed to us. The military has handed it to us. And as I've said before, Salvatore Pius translates as savior of our nation. Salvatore, savior. Pius, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, I'm probably mangling it. Pius means nation or country. So why would the military save our country by releasing these patents? Well, I think it's pretty obvious. We've talked about Space Force. I've done a lot of other videos suggesting that this forbidden technology is going to be part of what we're going to get. When you get into the work of Dr. Kenneth Shoulders and his amazing charge cluster technology, which is probably, it's one of the main contenders of what we're going to use to build hover cars. Because you can create anti-gravity with these little things. It turns out that if you send electrical current, sorry I'm jumping around a little bit, but hang in with me. If you send electrical current down a needle, and it comes off the point of the needle, you get this little ball of energy. And the ball of energy has all these very strange properties that shouldn't happen. It has way more electrostatic charge than it normally would. So it's got much, much greater energy in a much smaller package than it normally would, and it repels gravity. Plus, if you generate these charge clusters and you pass them through radioactive material, you deradiate the material. So when we start using charge cluster technology, we get free energy, because these things, if you generate a whole bunch of them, you get a lot of free energy out of it, more than it seems to take to generate, which is really true. That's just the nature of how charge clusters form. They attract more energy than it takes to make them. And then they emanate that energy. So they generate energy, they generate a gravitational pull that you can either push or pull with it. And they also are, again, deradiating radioactive material when you pass it through the material. So as I've talked about in other videos, I'm not going to run through all of it again. There have been these declassified patents filed by a man apparently named Salvatore Pius. And Salvatore Pius also patented a compact fusion reactor that's all these little needles that whirl around, which is how you make charge clusters, okay? And that is a power system you could drop in the thing. The other thing I talked about before is that the Hawkcraft is like a peanut. So there's a nut inside and then a shell on the outside, and that hollow area between the interior hull and the exterior hull, there's all these little needles where they can generate the charge clusters. So you generate them and then you steer them, and by first generating them, you then point them where you want to go, and that's how you get anti-gravity. So because I am working on hover car technology right now, I'm not joking. I'm not going to talk about it until we've got something for you, but we're getting pretty close. Once we get to that point, I can talk a lot more, but several of Pete Peterson's former associates I'm working with on this, and it's very, very real. We expect that once we get financed, hopefully, that we'll have an operational working prototype within 1 year, and that we could go into mass production within 4 years, where you will have a hover car in your garage at an affordable price.
Yeah, great. By 2025. Well, tick-tock, motherfucker. People are not going to forget that you lied to everybody. And this is very important to point out. In all of his pitches for how he's going to create hover car technology, he's claiming that he's going to use patents that don't belong to him. If you don't own the patent to that technology, even if that technology is workable, real technology, and no one has proven that it is yet, you can't just steal patents from somebody and build a device and sell it. Somebody needs to explain that to him. Patents exist to protect intellectual property and inventions. Now, could he create this and get some kind of licensing deal? Sure, but the owner of the patents himself, Salvatore Pius, has never proven that these are workable, real technologies. He got patents, but there's all kinds of patents that are issued without proof of work, without proof that the actual invention works. There's a long history of that. So David Wilcock is running around saying that he's going to create these hover cars based on patents that he doesn't own or have the legal right to use that technology. You see the problem here? People are not going to forget David Wilcock, that you lied through your teeth claiming that you were inventing hovercar technology, when in reality, even in your own talks, you're not inventing anything. You're attempting, at least from what you're saying, David Wilcock is attempting to steal the patents and technology from somebody else and then sell it, which he doesn't have the legal right to do. He would get sued into oblivion even if he made all of this work. And remember, he's saying a working hovercar prototype within a year. This is a year and a half ago. This is all you got? You just spent the past year and a half writing books about the goddamn Archangel Michael, you asshole. Where's the hovercars? You already forgot about the hovercars, and now you're on to the next scam that people are supposed to give you money for. How about this, David Wilcock? You've made enough money selling lies. Get a goddamn job. And throughout most of his broadcast, we'll see more of it in the second half, which, by the way, we're going to do tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to get through this whole thing. In the next half, he starts crying and complaining about how much he needs money. Hey, David Wilcock, maybe you shouldn't live in a 7-bedroom, 5-bathroom, $1 million mansion if you're living by yourself. You ever think of that? Maybe reduce those expenses so you don't quite need to live a millionaire's lifestyle. And why is everybody supposed to give you money so that you can live in a $1 million mansion and then have pity parties about how hard you've been working? Come on, bro. Get a sense of reality. There are people starving all over the United States. There are homeless people, and you're crying and complaining that you need money because you haven't actually worked on anything or done anything constructive in the past year and a half, in which you were supposed to be creating hovercar prototypes, but you didn't deliver shit. You didn't deliver shit. You got nothing in the past year and a half, you clown. But you did steal all that money from people teaching a course on anti-gravity that was all cobbled together garbage from all over the internet. You didn't prove that you can create any anti-gravity device. You never proved that you could create any free energy device. You just repeated a bunch of garbage you found on the internet and talked about other patents, none of which you own the rights to use. And you lied and said that the CEO of your scam aerospace company made spaceships for the government, and he made anti-gravity devices, but nobody's allowed to see them because they're secret. They're all top secret. You have a proven history of using fake sources, fake whistleblowers, and liars. Oh, and by the way, in the second half, he talks about Corey Good and those depositions. And oh boy, tomorrow night's going to be better. If you enjoyed tonight, I invite you to join us tomorrow night for the conclusion of the wacky world of Wilcock, in which we'll go over the other half of this garbage fest of fake sources, aliens, and angels. None of this. This guy should be ashamed to show his face in public. A year and a half ago, he scammed everybody for a course on free energy and anti-gravity, in which he said, if you take my course, you'll be able to do it too. Well, not only can he not do it, nobody who wasted $333 for his bullshit course can do it. Nobody can prove any of his claims about anti-gravity. Nobody can prove any of his claims about free energy. But here he is on the internet saying that he's going to have a working hovercar prototype within a year that will have a free energy device for an engine, so you won't even need fuel and it can power your house. If all of these things sound too good to be true, that's because they are. They're all from the land of the wacky world of Wilcock make-believe. None of this shit is real, and he should be ashamed of himself for taking people's money for this garbage. And speaking of money, I have often talked about the fact that we pay the truth tax here. These scammers are making millions and millions of dollars lying to people, selling people false information, fake with their fake doctor, fake whistleblowers that never really worked for the government. Do you understand, David Wilcock, that when you stand there on the internet and say my government whistleblower, and we can prove that person is a fraud, a liar, and a scammer that never worked for the government, that you have some liability. If nothing else, you have a karmic liability because you took all that money from all these people under false pretenses, pretending to have a government insider who never worked for the goddamn government. That's scammy and that's slimy. It's immoral, it's unethical, and it should be illegal. But this is where we're at, and this is where we find ourselves. And speaking of the truth tax on our show, we take a hit. I could be lying to you about free energy right now and making $1 million apparently, or telling you I'm Edgar Casey reincarnated. Instead, we show you the research into these frauds, fakes, charlatans, liars, and scammers. And for that, we pay the truth tax. But I'm happy to say that we have wonderful supporters from all over the world that throw a few bucks in our hat. We are a viewer-supported television, and I consider part of what we do a public service. But to continue our journey, we, like everyone, need resources. We thank all of you kind and generous benefactors, but we'd like to remind those of you who may be feeling generous and thinking, maybe somebody should stand up to these scammers. Maybe somebody should show what liars they are to stop people from getting victimized by these new age guru scammers. We have become a force for good in the world of whatever you want to call it, conspiracy land. And I'm happy to say that we have people in the live chat right now who used to be on the woo train, who have woken up to the constant begging for money scams being run by these new age scammers. And we're happy that we can make at least a dent in this immoral and unethical adventure that these scammers are on. Somebody should stand up to them. I'm proud that we get to do that here. But we are a viewer-supported show, so we'd like to appeal to your generosity and let you know how you can support the show. Now, let's be clear. Our content is always free here. You can always watch or listen to our shows entirely for free. They may be ad-supported, but they're free. But some of you choose to become members or Patreon supporters or Twitch subscribers. There's all kinds of ways to support us, and one of the best ways is to throw a couple of bucks in our hat.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Campion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truthseekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Thanks for being here. This is Truthseekers with your host, Stephen Campion. please rate, like, and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truthseekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat group during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truthseekers. Truthseekers.
Okay, we're back. We'll take a few comments and questions from the live chat. I see Trolley Troll with a kind and generous $5 super chat. We want to thank you for that, and also thank you for, of course, being a member. We want to thank all of our kind and generous members, and thanks to all of you tonight for helping us to praise
Raise the cash, raise the cash, raise the cash.
Thank you also for being a member as well. Very, very generous of you. Yes, you can give free cash to Truthseekers on Twitch. Find out how. You link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account. If you don't have a Twitch account, go over to twitch.com and make one. And then you can go to your Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you can link your Twitch account and then go back to our Twitch channel, and you can subscribe for free. Once a month, they let you give a few bucks to a Twitch subscribers. It's included in your Amazon Prime account. So it's free money from Jeff Bezos direct to us through you. We thank all of you for your kindness, generosity, and support. Pius won't tell what is in the secret sauce missing in his patent. Yes, he left something out. And what are the odds that David Wilcock is going to figure out what that secret sauce is? He's not a physicist. He's not a scientist. There's no chance whatsoever. To be quite honest, there's a lot of things that have been going on lately. Thank you to all of you who have reached out about my health situation. We got the dreaded China bug, but I'm feeling much, much better. Went to my medical doctor, got a treatment plan, followed that treatment plan exactly, and started feeling better almost immediately. Within 2 or 3 days, my children and my wife got through it a little bit before me. They got infected first, and then I tried to escape out of here to the cabin so that I wouldn't get infected, but I brought it with me to the cabin, and that was my least favorite cabin trip ever. Life is better at the cabin unless you have COVID. Then it's not a good place to be. It's freezing cold at the cabin still, even though it's April. Wasn't fun. I spent probably 2 days trying to sleep it off, as often is the case with me. If I get a bad cold or flu, I just try to sleep through it. Just rest. Bed rest for a couple of days usually does it. Not in this case. I needed some medication. I needed some other things, medical attention. I'm still feeling under the weather, but largely through it. So thanks to all of you for your kindness and inquiring about that. We want to thank Stormcrow for a kind and generous $2 Australian. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And we'll take a moment to thank all of you kind and generous benefactors. Thank you to Stormcrow, longtime show supporter. Thank you to our channel members, our Twitch subscribers, and our Patreon supporters, which reminds me, because of my situation, my health condition, for the first time in years, I did not deliver the end of the month monthly show journal. I'm going to be doing that in the next couple of days, along with a bonus video for making you guys wait. So I apologize. There'll be some extra goodies for you Patreon supporters and channel members in the next couple of days, I promise. This week, we've got a very full schedule. We'll be here every night, 9 p.m. Eastern. We're even starting a day early. I have so much to share with you this week. One of the benefits, I guess, to the bed rest and having some downtime is that I got to spend a great deal of time thinking. And one of the things that I thought is that we've got 20 shows that are 3/4 of the way done. Each of them needs just a little bit more to get the stuff we're going to be sharing with you and information to present to you. I'm rapidly getting those from 80% done to 100% done. And this week, we're going to have a very, very full week. So you people who wanted to see more shows, you get what you want this week. We'll be here all week, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Tomorrow night, we're going to be finishing this one. But we want to thank all you kind and generous benefactors for your kindness, your generosity, and your support of the show. Thanks to Stormcrow and all you wonderful super chatters for tonight.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your generosity. Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. And by the way, I'm wearing one of our wonderful Truthseekers logo t-shirts. We now have merchandise, and there is two links in the description of this video or podcast. And there you will find an Amazon store link. Now, Amazon will only ship, I think, to the United States and Great Britain. I'm not sure what other countries. So you could try the Amazon link, which is much faster, but may not ship to your home country. If you find it doesn't ship to you where you live, go back to the description of the video and hit that second link, the Redbubble link. That ships worldwide, but it takes a little bit longer. We've got Truthseekers logo shirts, t-shirts, women's shirts, tote bags. We've got all kinds of different designs for all of you people who want to show your support of the show and get a t-shirt. Long time coming. We have them all available now, and I want to thank all of you because we got to praise the cash last month and sold a bunch of merchandise for the first time, and all of the proceeds do help with the expenses of the show. Sandy Smith, thank you for being a member, also points out Paez gave that patent to the U.S. Navy, so Wilcock will be dealing with them. Yeah, try telling the United States government, you know those patents you own? Well, fuck you. I'm going to sell a product with your patents. This is nonsensical. He just saw those patents and thought that he could cash in somehow. It's not going to work. It's really not going to work, right? Archaic Revival is excited about all the kittens and puppies show. Hey, don't laugh. Maybe we'll get hard enough up for material. We'll just sit here and watch kitten videos on Truthseekers, right? That little bonus show, right? Yeah. And Troll says, take care of that little cash clown. Oh boy, you should have seen him today. He was in his glory because it's Easter. So he woke up and there was a huge amount of like candy and treats and toys. My wife bought a lot of toys this year, little things that he had been asking for. He got a great visit from the Easter Bunny, had an amazing Easter today, and I hope all of you did as well. But again, just a reminder, we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Jamit says, cool t-shirt. Yeah, this is my favorite, just the logo design. And it was kind of weird taking this out of the package, you know, because Truthseekers was a concept or idea that I developed. And yes, I designed the logo some time ago, but to see it on a t-shirt was interesting for me. It made it like, wow, this is a real thing that we created out there on the internet. And we've got an audience now, and we've got merchandise. Interesting sort of memory. I will remember taking this shirt out of that package forever. I got 5 or 6 other samples. I'll be wearing them on every show to try to entice you to purchase one of our excellent t-shirts. By the way, we've gotten a lot of feedback and everybody loves the merchandise so far. They're good quality t-shirts. They fit well. They're true to fit. So if you're really a large and you get a large, it's going to fit you like it should. It's good material. They feel good. I've been wearing them every day since I got a bunch of them, and I needed new T-shirts, to be honest with you. So the merchandise is working out and becomes a new income source, right? So we've been here for almost 4 hours. I can't believe it. So speaking of long streams like the Wilcock, stuff, but it is what it is. In order to get through an hour and a half of him, it takes 3 or 4 hours, right? And we did present a lot of foundational information at the start of this broadcast that I think is important. For example, did you notice how many times he cited that fake fraud whistleblower, Pete Peterson, who also happens to be dead right now? I think it's important that when you hear him say Pete Peterson, you instantly think fake whistleblower, fake doctor fraud with a fake background and a fake education, completely and totally fake. Every time he says Pete Peterson told me, what he's really saying is the senile old man that I took advantage of near the end of his life so that I could make money off of him said this, and he's dead now. It's ridiculous that this man is allowed to make money based on fake sources, fake whistleblowers with fake educations, fake claimed accomplishments. Like, come on, do you really think that you're going to be able to say I worked for Ronald Reagan as a science and technology advisor and nobody can fact check you? I'd love to hear David Wilcock's explanation. What is it? The Men in Black erased all of Pete Peterson's accomplishments? No, his accomplishments were all fake. And you, David Wilcock, are a clown for using a dead source that was fake when he was alive. Is he even more fake now that he's dead? And by the way, I predicted that David Wilcock would continue to use a dead man for a source when Pete Peterson died. I'm a better psychic than David Wilcock. And by the way, did you notice we are an hour and 20 minutes into his live stream, which was supposed to be about the Archangel Michael and his prophetic predictions. We didn't get to one. An hour and 20 minutes? You couldn't give us one angelic psychic prediction? No, he couldn't give us one. Hour and 20 minutes in. So we'll finish tomorrow night. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. We had great attendance tonight, especially for last minute. I decided last minute, let's just hit the ground running this week. Let's work. I actually honestly feel guilty when I am sick or something and I'm unable to work and I take too much time off. And there is also the issue of this hamster wheel of YouTube. I was just talking about it with a friend, Ryan Gable from The Secret Teachings, who said the same thing. You can't put your foot off the gas on this thing, because if you do, you suffer. The algorithm gets pissed off because you happen to be seriously medically sick and unable to produce content for 3 or 4 days. You take a big hit in the numbers, and I hate to see that, but I'm just going to learn to deal with it. Like I can't be forced to work by an AI algorithm. I want to be here because I want to be here, not because I have to be here to keep up the hamster wheel running. It's unfortunate. But my thanks to everybody. I'm sorry, little quick on that one. So my thanks to everybody who reached out to us. We want to thank all of you kind and generous benefactors, you Twitch subscribers, you Patreon people, you channel members, you kind and generous super chatters, and super sticker purchasers, PayPal donators. That reminds me, we'll check in with that just to make sure we didn't. You can send a pledge via PayPal as well, and we read every single one. Just be sure that you add a note and give us your chat room user ID. That is very, very helpful. Wow. Well, this is interesting. Let me read that one. I'm just going to say, Miss Rahman, a kind and generous $60 PayPal pledge. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. That is very, very generous of you. And the PayPal donations go a long way to help us, because PayPal takes just a couple of bucks. So if you have a large donation or a pledge like that to send, please do send it through PayPal because they only take a couple of bucks. And I don't know, I think YouTube is up to 40% of what they take from the super chats. We're thankful for any support we receive, but if you've got a large gift like that to send, the instructions for how to do it through PayPal are in the description of the video. Thank you, Miss Ramon, for helping us to praise the cat.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. It is much, much appreciated. So we're going to bounce on out of here. We've done our due diligence for today. We showed up and we helped to educate the public about New Age scammer extraordinaire, David Wilcock, who has been selling garbage with his fake whistleblowers and fake sources. Tomorrow's going to be even better because then he talks about David Wilcock, and boy, am I going to have some things to say. He accused us of doing illegal things, which is going to be a real problem for him. You can't accuse people of doing illegal things if they can prove they did not, right? But he makes a lot of legal claims in the next half of the video. We're going to cover it all tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have David Wilcock and the Wacky World of Wilcock, Angels, Aliens, and Baths of Piss, Part 2. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. I hope you'll be here with me. So that's all we got. Stormcrow reminding everybody, smash that like button and leave a comment after the stream. It really, really does help. And I can do the good YouTuber thing and remind you that besides throwing money at us, there are two ways that you can help us. The first is to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Put these videos on your social media. Share them on Facebook. Share them on Twitter. Share them anywhere that you can. The second way you could really help us is watch one more. I've been told by a YouTube expert that if you as a user or consumer of our content go and watch one more video, you don't have to do it today, maybe tomorrow while you're driving. Maybe you're going on a road trip that's going to be 4-hour drive. You could listen to a couple of episodes. Maybe tomorrow while you're cleaning, working, going through your daily life, take us with you. Go and watch another video. It really makes the YouTube algorithm turn the dials and recommend us much, much more in the search engine and in people's feeds. Somehow it shows the YouTube algorithm, if they see you coming back and watching one more, they assume that we're making good quality content that people come back for, and then they recommend us more. It really, really does help. That's my call to action. So we're going to bounce on out of here. I got to finish my taxes, and that's going to put me in a bad mood. But I got to get it done. My wife's on my case. I got to have it done for her tonight. So I got about half of it. I got to go through and fix the spreadsheets and income and outcome, and taxes are the worst. All right. But I'm happy to have income to pay taxes on. So thanks to all of you kind and generous benefactors. We have a little bit of income, and we'll be paying taxes like good citizens on that as well. I'll have more to share with you tomorrow night and some special surprises. Tomorrow night, David Wilcock and the Wacky World of Wilcock, Angels, Aliens, and Baths of Piss, Part 2, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow night. Please be here with me. So that's all I got, friends. Until next time, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night.